Chapter 281. Rock. Su Ming stood up, and his gaze fell on Bai Su's picture. Slowly, he closed his eyes. When he reopened them a moment later, he took a few steps forward and stood at the edge of the platform outside his cave abode. The sky had already become completely dark, but the snow and ice underneath still shone with a white light, causing the land to not be shrouded in darkness. The platform Su Ming was standing on was near the top of the 9th summit. It could be said that there were hundreds upon thousands of feet from where he was to the ground. If a normal person lowered his or her head to look down, they would find it hard to not have his or her heart start racing while also feeling dizzy. Su Ming stood there and looked down as the light in his eyes flickered. The golden rock rode the winds in the world and flew above the 9th heaven. It won't be easy trying to copy the movements of the sacred beast of the shaman tribe, then creating it for my own. If I don't have the golden rock's heart and don't feel the rock's will, then it will be difficult to understand its spirit. Then, just what are the golden rock's heart and will? Su Ming stood there, silent for a long while before he closed his eyes. He lifted his right foot, then stepped off the border of the platform, and plunged straight down the canyon. With that one step, his body was in the air. Without circulating his power of the awakening realm and using any enchanted treasure, his body started falling down the mountain like a rock. His speed as he fell was very quick, so quick that whistling sounds sliced through the air as his body scraped against air. Su Ming closed his eyes and spread his arms open. As he continued falling, the image of the golden rock soaring through the clouds formed in his head. The golden rock's heart and its will are reflected as it flies through the world. Within its eyes, there is nothing in the world that can stop its path. It can fly endlessly in this vast sky. Su Ming fell even faster, and the sounds of wind moaning rose in his ears. The wind seemed to be able to tear through everything, and when it appeared, it was as if there was a strange sound mixed within it. 10,000 feet, 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet, Su Ming's eyes remained closed as he continued falling. Besides the golden rock, he had nothing else in his mind. 40,000 feet, 50,000 feet, when he had fallen 80,000 feet down and was very close to the foot of the mountain, when his body was charging towards the ground like a comet, all the blood in Su Ming's body started circulating backwards and surged towards his head, causing his head to buzz. The buzzing sounds grew stronger, and gradually, Su Ming's will began to cloud over. Gradually, the golden rock also started fading away from his head. The instant it turned into a mere illusion, Su Ming opened his eyes. When he did so, the buzzing sounds in his head turned into roars that could shake the sky and earth. The golden rock in his head lifted its head and let out a howl towards the sky. The golden rock's heart represents freedom. Its will is to be unrestrained, which is what is pursued in seeking freedom. That's why it's incredibly hard to tame it, because once the rock is tamed, then it won't be free anymore. It would be the same as losing its spirit. Master's golden rock clearly did not have its freedom limited by Master. It could fly at will in the land of the shamans. Only when Master needs it, then it will appear. There must be some other reasons to this, or else, just having to listen to Master's orders without any other reason would make it very miserable. Understanding appeared in Su Ming's eyes. His body continued plunging down, but he did nothing to stop himself. Instead, he simply let his body get rapidly closer to the ice on the ground, only lifting his right hand to draw 2 lines towards the sky. The 2 lines contained all of Su Ming's strength, his understanding, and his perception towards the golden rock's will. The instant he drew the 2 lines, he was already less than 1,000 feet away from the ground. A sense of danger enveloped Su Ming's mind and body, but he did not try resist it. When he was only a few dozen feet away from the ground, he drew a perfect arc. And he shot into the air, straight into the skies. Su Ming traveled so quickly that he felt like he was crashing against mountain ranges, even though what lay before him was the endless sky. This feeling was incredibly strong, and it could even be said that it was not just a mere figment of his imagination. It was real pain he sensed of when his body crashed against the wind. While Su Ming was feeling as if he was crashing against mountains, the distance between the earth and sky shortened by several fold in his eyes. It was as if the 2 spots and 2 lines existing between the sky and earth fused together, and once they did, an abrupt change in their positions happened. All of those things were what Su Ming felt in that instant. His body immediately turned into a black dot in the sky. Excitement appeared in his eyes, but there was sharp pain shooting up his body. During that instant, he had shot up into the sky from the ground at a terrifying speed. His body could not withstand that speed. Su Ming could tell that with his body's current tolerance, if he used that speed again, his body would be torn apart. Is this the Golden Rock's speed? No, this wasn't as fast as the rock. I'm still slightly slower, but this is already astonishing. Su Ming quelled his excitement and did not dare use that speed anymore. He walked onto his platform on the 9th summit and immediately sat down. A mouthful of blood spilled out from his mouth. Yet Su Ming thought that this spilling of blood was worth it. By coughing out blood once, he understood the will of the Golden Rock as it spread its wings and placed it into his drawing. That was enough. My body is not strong enough. If I'm strong enough, then I can last longer, and with that speed, even the Virescent sword won't be able to catch up. Su Ming's heart pounded against his chest. It could be said that it was by pure coincidence that he understood the Golden Rock's speed. If it was not for what Bai Su drew on her drawing board, Su Ming would not have been able to think about this. His eyes swept past Bai Su's drawing board before he slowly closed his eyes. In his mind, he continuously replayed the speed at which he had traveled just now and the two lines he had drawn. When the night went by and light appeared in the horizon, Su Ming opened his eyes. There was still excitement in them. He dipped his head down and looked at his own body. Once he did so, a glint appeared in his eyes. If I wore the divine general armor, equipped it with runes to increase its defense, and at the same time removed all the ice rocks, and used the Golden Rock's speed, then how fast could I travel? As Su Ming mumbled to himself, the desire to try it grew within him. However, the chances of him forming runes within the divine general armor were still not high. He was just about to try when his expression suddenly changed and he charged into the cave abode. Once he was in, he did not hesitate and walked to where He Feng was fusing with the wings of the moon. In the cave, He Feng was slowing opening his eyes, and they were bloody red. He lifted his head and howled, and cracks rapidly tore his skin open, but no blood flowed out. Instead, black mist spread out from those cracks. There was a pair of wings that belonged to the wings of the moon on him. With one flap of those wings, he looked as if he wanted to rush out of the cave, but when Su Ming walked in, he lifted his right hand and drew a line down with his finger. At the same time, Han Mountain Bell appeared above He Feng. Bell chimes echoed in the air and turned into a mighty pressure in the form of a sound wave. It shook He Feng and caused him to freeze, then he seemed to regain his senses, and pain appeared on his face. Master, I'm almost there, I can tell. If I make it through this and make it through another fusion, I'll succeed. He Feng's voice rose and then fell, and when it reached Su Ming's ears, his finger had already touched the center of He Feng's brows. The moment he did so, Su Ming's robes flapped about violently and his hair was lifted. A grim expression appeared in Su Ming's eyes. A presence that could rival that of those in the great completion of the awakening realm. Even the powerful berserkers who had just arrived at the early stages of the bone sacrifice realm, abruptly erupted forth from his body and his finger, surging into He Feng's body that was still fusing with the wings of the moon. He Feng shuddered and slowly sat down. Master, when I was fusing with them, I saw, their memories, As He Feng spoke, his teeth suddenly grew longer. They instantly shot out of his mouth, causing his unfinished sentence to turn into a howl. Fire. That one world was contained within He Feng's howl. As he howled, fire abruptly burst forth from within his body. It was as if that fire wanted to burn down Su Ming's cave abode on the 9th summit. Yet the moment it appeared, the blood moon in Su Ming's right eye shone. He lifted his left hand and tapped He Feng's forehead with his finger. He pressed his finger down, and it caused the fire from He Feng's body to freeze for a moment before flowing back inside. Time trickled by. The time Su Ming took in this attempt to help He Feng fuse with the wings of the moon far surpassed all his previous ones. Even when one day had passed by, it had yet to end. Bai Su had arrived at the 9th summit a long time ago. She waited for a while before entering Su Ming's cave abode. Yet the moment she entered, she was immediately pushed out by an invisible force. After several attempts, She sat down by the side with a huff and only left unwillingly when night came. The entire process lasted 7 days. When the 7th evening was over and night fell, Su Ming opened his eyes. He Feng had once again turned into a gigantic black ball of light before him. It was silent all around him, but there was a mighty pressure spreading from the ball of light. A feeling as if their blood was connected appeared in Su Ming's heart when he looked at that ball of light. There was a slight hint of fatigue on his face. He looked at it for a little while longer before walking out of the room, sitting down cross-legged in his cave, and meditating to recover. It was also at that moment that an unwelcomed guest appeared outside Bai Sus' cave abode in the 7th summit. That person was also a woman and lived in the 7th summit. However, her level of cultivation was not high and she usually kept to herself. That was why it was easy for people to overlook her. The woman came to give Bai Su a bamboo slip. The name Sima Xin was written beautifully on it. Once the woman handed the bamboo slip, she stated coolly, "Senior brother Sima wants to see you." She then turned around and left. Bai Su looked at the bamboo slip with a blank expression, and her thoughts became chaotic. This was the first time she experienced such an emotion when she heard that Sima Xin wanted to see her. Chapter 282, Murderous. After the time takes to burn an incense stick, Bai Su quietly walked out of her house. Her hair was still tied by the red string, and she still had 2 braids by her ears. She still wore a blouse with its fur overturned, and there were still crystals stuck to her forehead. She could not describe what she felt, but she could tell that it was different from before. In the past, when she went to see Sima Xin, she would be filled with warmth. Whether she was just talking or playing chess with him, every single gaze of his would make her heart pound as if there was a horde of deer running rampart within her. Yet now, while the feeling was not gone per se, it had become much weaker. This brought about a mix of emotion in her heart, along with great confusion. She quietly left the 7th summit and walked on the familiar path leading up to the 1st summit. Yet as she walked on this path this day, she felt that the trail had become much shorter. Bai Su was not overly familiar with the 1st summit. She might have come here several times, but she only knew the road leading to Sima Xin's cave abode. When she arrived outside it, she saw Sima Xin sitting by a stone table dressed in a long robe and looking as handsome as ever. There was a gentle look on Sima Xin's face, and his smile was very captivating. His eyes shone like stars when he looked at Bai Su. Su, you haven't come here to see me for more than a month, is there something wrong? Big brother Sima. Bai Sus paused in her footsteps. She did not know what to say. The wildness of her disposition disappeared without a trace at that moment and was replaced with docility, obedience, and that complicated feeling that still remained within her. Come, sit before me. Sima Xin looked at Bai Su. The moonlight made his smile even more captivating. This was Sima Xin's unique charm. Bai Su walked quietly forward, sat down before him, and dipped her head down. She looked like a completely different person compared to when she was in the 9th summit. It was as if they were from 2 separate worlds. Bai Su's thoughts were a little messy. She had no idea why, but ever since she came here, her heart had been racing. However, she still knew at the very least that the reason for it was not because of Sima Xin but that hint of uneasiness lying deep within her heart. She could not find the source of the uneasiness. She just had a feeling that she should not be here. Su, what's wrong? Why do you look so troubled? There was worry on Sima Xin's face, and he lifted his right hand to grab Bai Su's hand. Yet before he could even touch her, she pulled her hand back as if shocked by lightning. She lifted her head to look at Sima Xin with nervousness and a short moment of bewilderment. It's nothing, big brother Sima, I'm fine. Bai Su forced out a smile. She saw the worry in Sima Xin's eyes, but for a reason she did not even know, when she saw him, a person sitting cross-legged and allowing her to throw her tantrums suddenly appeared in her head. Su, have you talked to your father about freezing Sky Cave? Sima Xin was not bothered by Bai Su's expression or actions. He still looked calm when he spoke gently. Even his voice felt like the spring wind. In the freezing weather, his smiles could make people's hearts feel warm. That tone, smile, and expression were something Sima Xin could put on with ease. He was already used to it, used to all the girls looking at him differently when he spoke to them in that voice. He believed that Bai Su was the same. What's wrong with him? I haven't seen him in 7 days. What is he doing in his cave? Did something happen to him? No, it shouldn't have. Bai Su's mind wandered. There was a single thought that had been lingering in her mind for the past few days, and it was about why Su Ming had not come out of his cave for 7 days. She had a lot of questions about it, but as time passed by, those questions were also tinted with a hint of slight worry. Su. Sima Shin frowned. Bai Su was stunned and snapped out of her stupor. Immediately, she returned to her docile self with a hint of nervousness. Big brother Sima, Su, if something happened to you, you must tell me. Don't be like this. It'll just make my heart ache for you when I see it, Sima Shin said softly. If you're troubled because of me going into Freezing Sky Clan, then I can give it up. For you, I can give it up. Gentleness appeared in Sima Shin's eyes. If you're troubled because I told you to get closer to Su Ming, then I can also give it up. I told you, for you, I can give up on everything. Sima Shin's voice was laced with a strange attractive quality that made it very pleasant to the ears. Bai Su looked at Sima Shin, at the man before her, and Su Ming's face appeared faintly in her mind once again. These two completely different people treated her in absolutely different ways, and the way she acted before them was also different. Su, Sima Shin looked intently at Bai Su. Big brother Sima, don't worry. I'm fine, I already told my father, and he has agreed to let you go into Freezing Sky Cave, Bai Su said softly, biting her lip. Joy blossomed in Sima Shin's heart, but on his face was only a look of worry. I don't care about that, I only care about Big brother Sima, I'm tired. This was the first time Bai Su had interrupted Sima Shin's words. Fatigue and confusion fused together on her face. She stood up gently, left her seat, and walked away. When Bai Su disappeared in the distance, Sima Shin calmly picked up the wine cup on the table, took a sip, then placed it down slowly. He closed his eyes and immersed himself in his thoughts for a moment before standing up and walking to his cave abode. His expression remained calm and not a hint of change due to Bai Su's expressions and actions could be seen on him. Yet after he left the table, the stone chair he had sat on shuddered and cracks appeared on it. In an instant, it turned to dust and scattered into the wind. The 8th morning arrived with the sun rising into the sky. When the first rays of sunlight shone on the land, Su Ming opened his eyes and looked at the light outside his cave. Gradually, a dark expression appeared on his face. It's been 8 days, and Ziche isn't back yet. Su Ming got up, walked out of the cave onto the platform, and frowned. Ziche had said before he left that he would need at most 3 to 5 days before he could return, and he also said that most of the trading squares were courteous towards those of Freezing Sky Clan. Most of them were also fair towards those who came to trade. After all, that place belonged to Freezing Sky Clan, and there were few who would dare to offend Freezing Sky Clan in the land of South Morning. Freezing Sky Clan was also very close to the great tribe of Freezing Sky. The tribe and Freezing Sky Clan complemented each other. Although the two of them seemed like two completely different forces, they came from the same root. All the disciples in Freezing Sky Clan would go to the great tribe of Freezing Sky to be given a title once they reached a certain level of cultivation. They would treat the great tribe of Freezing Sky as they would their own master. The area around this place might not be impenetrable, but accidents rarely happened in the area near where Freezing Sky Clan disciples regularly went to. While Ziche might not have reached the bone sacrifice realm, he was one of the best among those who had reached the later stage of the awakening realm. He was also ranked within the top 10 in the Great Frozen Plains ranking boards. He might not be as prodigious as Sima Shin, but it was still enough for people to look up to him. This sort of person did not lack experience venturing out either. He understood the area around the place very well. That was why Su Ming let him go alone so that he could save up more time for his own training. Chapter 283, Phantom. Bai Su's heart pounded against her chest, and it was due to the powerful impact of Su Ming's change. Not only did Bai Su's breathing freeze because of it, she also felt a freezing chill that seemed to be much colder than the cold from the sky and world surging out from the area around him. She shuddered. This was the first time Bai Su saw this Su Ming. He terrified her. She suddenly felt that she did not understand the person before her. Before this day, she never knew that when this man was burning with silent anger, such a powerful murderous aura would come from him. Su Ming was no longer a boy, no longer a rash child who would do things recklessly. He had learned how to be calm and got used to being cool-headed. He might be angry, but besides the killing intent in his right eye, he did not let anything else show. Instead, he lifted his right hand and tapped a finger against the center of Zichai's brows. With that one tap, Zichai instantly started trembling. Su Ming crouched down, brought out some medicinal pills, and placed them into Zichai's mouth. He picked him up and raised him to a sitting position. He placed his right hand at the top of Zichai's skull, and the moment the power of awakening surged into his body, Zichai trembled even more violently. He coughed out another mouthful of blood, and it was still filled with those black, squirming bugs. Su Ming frowned. He noticed that once his power surged into Zichai's body, it immediately turned into thousands upon thousands of threads that disappeared into all parts of Zichai's body. It was as if his power was swallowed. This was something normal and to be expected, and it was what Su Ming had wanted to do. He wanted to use his power of the awakening realm along with the medicinal pills Zichai swallowed to nourish Zichai's body. Only then would he be able to wake him up as quickly as possible and begin healing him, though he would only be able to cure him a little. Yet now, even though Su Ming's power was continuously disappearing into Zichai's body, the man wasn't getting better. In fact, he grew worse. He had a single thread of life left previously, and now that thread was rapidly disappearing. Once it completely disappeared, Zichai would definitely die. Su Ming let out a cold snort. The killing intent in his right eye grew stronger. He might have never treated Zichai as one of the Ninth Summit, but ever since Zichai came to the Ninth Summit, besides the disobedience at the start, he had always listened to Su Ming's orders. Over the past months, Su Ming had found no reason to complain about Zichai. More importantly, Zichai had gradually begun to refer to Su Ming as Master, instead of Uncle Master, entirely of his own will. Su Ming had not asked him to do it. Deep in his heart, Su Ming had always thought his eldest senior brother could hurt Zichai as much as he wanted to. His second senior brother could do it too, and it was the same for his third senior brother. Of course, it was the same for his master. However, besides these people, if anyone else harmed his follower, then they would need to pay for it. With a cold harumph, the green sword mark at the center of Su Ming's brows flashed, and instantly, his divine sense spread out to gather on Zichai's body. After it scanned it, it surged inside and began looking in detail through each and every inch of the body. After a moment, a sharp look appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He could clearly sense a cocoon-like thing in Zichai's stomach with his divine sense. That thing was about the size of a fist, but there seemed to be an endless space within it, for black bugs were incessantly crawled out of it. These bugs stayed inside Zichai's body and continuously absorbed his life force to strengthen themselves. That act was incredibly vicious and cruel. Su Ming lifted his right hand from the top of Zichai's skull and drew a slash across Zichai's robes covering his chest, then pressed his palm on his abdomen. Once he did so, he fused the power of awakening with his divine sense and swept it across the cocoon-like thing in Zichai's stomach. Zichai lay with eyes closed, unconscious, but right then he let out a piercing scream. As he screamed, Su Ming's right hand turned into a claw and pierced his abdomen. Once the fingers sank into his flesh, Su Ming seized the cocoon and yanked it out, forcefully bringing it out of Zichai's body. The instant the cocoon was brought out, Zichai's eyes flew open, revealing an extremely exhausted look in his eyes. At the same time, Su Ming pressed his left hand against the wound on Zichai's abdomen. The power of awakening surged in with Su Ming's command to clear up the body, and caused the wound to quickly close up and numerous black bugs to crawl out of Zichai's eyes, nose, ears, and mouth. They struggled for a moment before falling to the ground, lifeless. A hint of red gradually appeared on Zichai's face, and his life force slowly stopped fading away. He panted harshly and sat down cross-legged to meditate, slowly showing signs of recovery. However, there were still wisps of black mist surrounding the black arrow that was protruding from his right leg. That black mist would occasionally gather up to turn into ghosts that howled without sound. Su Ming pulled his left hand back and was about to draw that black arrow out, but he stopped himself. He stared at the arrow and frowned. He had a feeling that the arrow was not something that he could take out easily. The arrow of the Black Arrow Berserker. The ones who are shot will find their life force continuously disappearing, as if they were poisoned, without the proper method. If you pull out the arrow, Ziche will die in his weakened state, Bai Sus said in a weak voice from nearby. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he averted his gaze from Ziche's body to look at the cocoon he held in his right hand. That cocoon was entirely black and looked like a stone. When Su Ming brought it out of Ziche's body, it had been soft to touch, but when it was exposed to wind, it hardened up rapidly. There was a crack on its corner, and black bugs were crawling out of it. However, that crack was quickly closing up. The bugs that had crawled out all fell to the ground under the cold wind. Su Ming stared at the cocoon in his hand and a light of curiosity alighted in his eyes. "This isn't something from Freezing Sky Clan," a weak voice laden with fear said from the direction before Su Ming. When he lifted his head, he saw Bai Su walking onto the platform with a hesitant look on her face. "All the things in Freezing Sky Clan can withstand the cold, but this thing hardens up once it's exposed to cold wind. It doesn't belong to Freezing Sky Clan," Bai Su stated softly. Su Ming did not speak. He lowered his head and continued looking at the cocoon in his hand. A frown gradually formed on his brows. His eyes seemed calm, but no one could know the storm raging in his heart when he saw the bugs Ziche vomited out and when he held the cocoon in his hand. Bai Su hesitated for a moment before continuing. "Even in the great tribe of Freezing Sky, it's rather impossible for something like this to appear, because the climate is not suitable for these things to survive. See, they're already dead. The cocoon in your hands will also die before long. What's the relationship between Northern Frontier Tribe and the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky?" Su Ming slowly asked. "There are 4 branches under the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky. Northern Frontier is one of them. As for Zhou Zhe, I've heard of him before. He's not a disciple of Freezing Sky Clan but is the son of Zhou Ya, Northern Frontier Tribe's chief of war." Bai Su hesitated for a moment, but still chose to tell what she knew in the end. However, there was one thing that she did not tell Su Ming after her hesitation. Zhou Zhe was someone who was closely acquainted with Sima Xin. "What does Black Arrow Berserker mean?" As Su Ming asked, he averted his gaze from the cocoon in his hand and turned to look at Ziche's, who still remained sitting cross-legged, right leg. The ghosts formed from the black mist around the arrow were floating around hideously. The berserkers in Northern Frontier Tribe train in ways that are largely different from what we do here in Freezing Sky Clan. They refine their blood, but don't awaken, neither do they sacrifice their bones. They choose instead to walk down the path of training which stimulates the power of the blood in their veins, turning their bodies invincible. This cultivation method is unique to Northern Frontier Tribe and they seldom share it with outsiders. When Northern Frontier Tribe surrendered to the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky, they also gained the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky's respect. That's why they could retain that unique cultivation method of theirs. Black Arrow is just one of their titles. They are divided into blue, black, green, and purple. Black Arrow Berserkers are around the same level as a berserker in the Bone Sacrifice realm. Besides the cultivation method which Northern Frontier Tribe keeps secret to themselves, they also keep the method they use to create their arrows a secret. Their arrows can only be shot by the tribe members who practice their secret cultivation method. They have the power to absorb life and cannot be drawn out lightly. The black mist on it has to be refined, and then enough life force has to be offered for it to be possible to take the arrow out, Bai Su explained softly, telling almost everything she knew in detail. Su Ming stared at the arrow in Ziche's right leg and the murderous aura in his right eye became stronger. "What is that black mist?" he asked calmly. "A phantom, this is the name Northern Frontier Tribe gave it. Every single year, the berserkers who have become adults will be sent to a secret place in the Northern Frontier to search for their own phantom. Once the person finds it, the arrow he or she shoots out will have the power of the phantom. The more people the person kills, the stronger the phantom will become. Eventually, the phantom's power will reach a shocking level. The Great Tribe of Freezing Sky suffered quite a lot before they subdued this tribe in the past and named it Northern Frontier." Su Ming was silent for a moment before looking at Bai Su. The knowledge she possessed of these things shocked him. What was the name of the tribe before freezing sky subdued it? Phantom Deus, Bai Su answered in a low voice. Once she finished speaking, she hesitated and cast a glance at Su Ming. Perhaps, I can try getting rid of the phantom aura on the arrow. Su Ming looked towards her. My power may not be great, but I've always liked reading ancient scrolls since I was young. I know a lot of things other people don't know. I also learned a lot of arts from some strange tribes from my father, Bai Su said softly. She did not tell Su Ming that her father had done everything he could to get all sorts of valuable ancient scrolls and arts that could be casted without relying on the caster's level of cultivation to foster this one and only interest of hers because of what had happened to her when she was young. How confident are you? Su Ming asked calmly. Bai Su hesitated for a moment before she answered softly, 3/10, 2/10, maybe even less. If you fail, then Ziche will die. Su Ming asked after a moment of silence. Bai Su did not speak for some time. After a long while, she nodded her head with a grim look on her face. Chapter 284, Ninth Summit's Call to Assemble. If you don't cure him, he won't be able to live for long either. First, his power will fade away, and once he loses his power, his body will be the next to be go, and eventually his life force will also fade away. When he is truly and completely dead, he will turn into a phantom and return to his master's side, Bai Su stated softly. Northern Frontier Tribe also belongs to Freezing Sky. If Zhou Zhe kills Ziche, won't Freezing Sky clan take action? Su Ming looked at the cocoon in his hand. The cocoon had completely hardened up by then and felt like an ice rock in his hand. Don't you know? Bai Su was taken aback. She looked if she just understood something. She cast a look at Ziche and a complicated look appeared in her eyes. What? Su Ming lifted his head and looked at Bai Su. 3 months ago, Ziche's master notified the mountain gate and chased him out of the second summit. He's no longer a Freezing Sky clan disciple. Su Ming's eyes flashed with a dark light and he looked towards Ziche, who was sitting on the platform with a pale but determined face. He could not hear Su Ming and Bai Su's words. Right now, he had to make sure to keep curing himself, or else he would not be able to fight against the power of the arrow. 3 months ago, Su Ming understood it then. This thing had happened during the 5 days he was gone from Freezing Sky clan. Yet he had seen nothing out of place from Ziche. However, it was clear that this was not something unimportant to Ziche. If that's not the case, then there would have been no need for him to lower his head in shame every time he saw his sister, Bai Su sighed softly. Su Ming stayed silent, looking at the cocoon in his hand. After a long while, he gave it a squeeze. You said that this bug isn't something from Freezing Sky and that it dies when it's exposed to the cold. Su Ming's voice was calm. Not a hint of emotion could be heard from his tone. Bai Su nodded. Su Ming crouched down and picked up a bug that was so stiff that it seemed dead. Once he held it in his hand, a powerful ball of fire abruptly appeared on Su Ming's palm and enveloped that bug. That bug's rigid body suddenly trembled within the fire, then flipped over energetically. It screeched and started moving as if it wanted to crawl into Su Ming's body through his palm. Yet before it could enter, the fire on Su Ming's palm was snuffed out. As chilling wind blew past, Su Ming clenched his fist. Cracking sound rang out, and Su Ming relaxed his grip. Bai Su sucked in a sharp breath when she saw that the black bug in Su Ming's palm had turned to pieces. This bug wasn't dead, it just went into slumber. It'll wake up once again when it becomes hot. Su Ming flicked his wrist, and the pieces in his palm scattered into the wind. That is the case for the bug, and it is the same for the cocoon. Su Ming's voice was freezing cold. A scene from his memories rose before his eyes. He saw a chain, and on that chain was an illusionary figure of a person. There were numerous wounds covering that person's entire body, and within those wounds were countless black bugs that were identical to the bug he just held. Lei Chen. Su Ming closed his eyes. He hadn't known whether what he saw on the chains of Han Mountain was real or fake, and he still couldn't tell even now. Yet the appearance of these black bugs shook him. He had never seen them before he challenged the chains of Han Mountain, so there had been the possibility of it just being a figment of his imagination or that it was a mere illusion, but now that he saw the exact same bug, there was no way Su Ming would believe that he had imagined it. If it's real, then why is the truth different from my memories? If it's fake, then how could something of my imagination exist in the real world, and in the exact same form too? This is a clue. Su Ming opened his eyes and Bai Su's soft whispers fell into his ears. Let me try for Ziche, she whispered, looking straight at Su Ming. Don't need to. There's a method with which I can cure Ziche completely without any risk, Su Ming stated calmly. His voice was cold, and a red glare shone from his right eye. What method is that? Bai Su was taken aback. She did not understand the meaning behind Su Ming's words. Kill Zhou Zhe and destroy his phantom, then the phantom aura on the arrow sticking out of Ziche's leg will disappear naturally. Once Su Ming finished speaking, he looked at Bai Su. You know this area better than I do. Bring me to Northern Frontier Tribe. Bai Su bit her bottom lip and stared at Su Ming with wide-eyed astonishment, but she still shook her head firmly. With your power, if you go to Northern Frontier Tribe alone, you'll definitely die. I won't take you there. I'm not alone. Su Ming turned and let out a piercing howl towards the sky. That howl echoed through the entire ninth summit, causing the glaciers to tremble and rumble loudly. When that howl started, Hu Zi was drinking in his cave with his eyes closed and a silly grin on his face. He was just about to hug his wine gourd and go to sleep so that he would have enough energy for his nightly activities. Yet the moment he was about to close his eyes and begin snoring, Su Ming's piercing howl shot into his cave. That howl was like a rumbling thunder, causing Hu Zi's cave to tremble, and Hu Zi opened his eyes. He rubbed them hard and a surprised look appeared within them. What's wrong with Fourth? But he did not hesitate. Hu Zi immediately picked up his pot of wine and rushed out of his cave before running towards Su Ming's cave abode. At the same time, around the middle of the ninth summit was a spot where a large amount of flowers bloomed. Green leaves covered the entire area and created a scene on the ice that looked as if time had traveled back. Su Ming's second senior brother sat cross-legged among the flowers, maintaining a position in which the sun would always shine on the side of his face. There was a gentle smile on his face, and before him, many of the plants were swaying even though there was no wind. Some of those plants were growing rapidly and intertwining with each other as if they were trying to knit something. There was an intense look of concentration on the second senior brother's face. Yet at that moment, Su Ming's howl reverberated through the ninth summit. There was a shocking amount of killing intent within that howl. The plants that were knitting something before the second senior brother froze momentarily under that killing intent. Surprise appeared on the second senior brother's face. He lifted his head and looked at where Su Ming's cave was located in the distance. Who offended youngest junior brother now? Second senior brother stood up at a moderate pace and patted his robes before placing his hands behind his back and walking towards Su Ming's cave abode with the sun shining on the side of his face. His feet may have seemed to be stepping on the ground, but in truth, every single time his feet landed, they would stay an inch away from the ground. Similarly, as Su Ming's howl traveled through the ninth summit, at the ice located at the position downwind of the ninth summit, a gaze appeared in the darkness in the place that was always used as an isolation grounds. Faint mumbling sounds came from within the silent glacier. Such killing intent, if he doesn't release it, it'll be difficult for him to clear his mind. Youngest junior brother, you may want to go release it, but I still can't go out. Yet suddenly, an ice rock that was about the height of a person suddenly cracked. Fire spread out from within that crack, looking as if it was burning that ice rock. In an instant, more cracks appeared on the ice rock, and it eventually exploded. The moment it exploded, a black hand stretched out from within the ice rock. A powerful gust of freezing wind spread from that black hand. Once it stretched out, it pressed against the ice floor by its side, and gradually, as if someone was crawling out, a man whose skin was completely black appeared. That man was half naked. When he crawled out, he closed his eyes and knelt down on one knee in the direction of the gaze. All 300 of my slaves stopped the slaughter at the same time as I did in the past and joined me when I isolated myself here. Now, I've awakened you, one of the 300 slaves. Go and do something for me. Your instructions, young master. The man opened his gray eyes. Within those gray eyes were madness and mercilessness. While those could cause people to feel a chill creeping into their hearts, they would also be able to clearly sense the bloodthirst coming from within the man. Protect my junior brothers and listen to them. If necessary, I will allow you to cast the forbidden curses. The gaze within the ice glaciers gradually disappeared. Only the words remained floating in the air, and as they echoed calmly, they radiated with bloodlust. That man grinned and licked his lips. He bowed and stood up. The moment he took a step forward, his body immediately turned into a layer of black mist that crawled into the ice walls around him before disappearing. At the same time, at the top of the ninth summit, Tian Shiezi yawned and stretched his back as he walked out from his cave. As he walked, mumbling sounds could be heard spilling out from his lips as well. Once he reached the top of the mountain, he took a deep breath, laid down facing the ground with both hands supporting his entire body and started doing push-ups. Once he did a few of them, he stood up, and a contented smile appeared on his lips. I did 10 today. That's one more than last year. That's great. That's wonderful. That's marvelous. Tian Shiezi, you're just too amazing. You're the strongest person I've ever met in my life. Tian Shiezi, you awesome bugger, I'm proud of you. With a pleased smile on his face, Tian Shiezi mumbled to himself for a moment before lifting his head. He was just about to let out a roar towards the sky like how he usually did every day before he flew in a certain direction to train his body in the morning when he stopped. The moment he opened his mouth to roar, someone did it before him and let out a piercing howl. That howl rumbled like thunder and traveled in all directions, stunning Tian Shiezi. I haven't even shouted, why's there sound? Tian Shiezi blinked and lifted his hand to cover his mouth. When he heard that the sound was still echoing in the air, he quickly crouched down and looked down the edge of the peak with his neck outstretched. Fourth's cry is really unpleasant. Third is rushing over. Second is also going over. Well, I'll be damned. That eldest disciple of mine in isolation is also joining in. Are they going to fight? Haha, this is going to be fun. An excited glimmer appeared in Tian Shiezi's eyes. He quickly rolled up his sleeves with a look as if he wanted to join in. As Su Ming's howl echoed in the air, Hu Zi was the first to appear on the platform outside Su Ming's cave abode. The moment he came to the platform, he saw the wretched state Ziche was in and an angry glare immediately appeared in his eyes. Bloody hell, who hurt my kitten? Soon, second senior brother walked towards them with his hands behind his back and a gentle smile on his face. But the moment he saw Ziche's condition, that smile on his face disappeared. Youngest junior brother, who did this? Su Ming looked at Ziche and stated calmly, Zhou Zhe, Black Arrow Berserker of Northern Frontier Tribe. He's the son of Zhou Ya, Northern Frontier's chief of war. Bloody hell, I'm going to FCK his birdie up. How dare he touch my kitten? Hu Zi roared. This is not good. Second senior brother shook his head and a faint smile appeared once again on his lips, but this time, there was a frightening quality to that smile. We won't FCK his birdie up. We'll cut this birdie off and eat it. The smile on the second senior brother's lips grew wider. As Bai Su continued listening to them, her face turned red and she clicked her tongue in distaste. Chapter 285, The Legend of the Phantom Equal. Cut off his birdie and eat it. Hu Zi was stunned when he heard those words and instinctively lifted his hand to scratch his head, but thought that it was not an act suitable for him. He immediately lowered his hand, which was already partly lifted. He had always believed that he was the smartest person in the ninth summit, and he absolutely did not want anyone knowing that he did not seem to have fully understood the meaning behind those words. That's right, that's what I meant, we'll cut off his birdie and eat it. That bugger, I'll eat it once I cut it off. Hu Zi patted his chest and grinned foolishly as he looked at his second senior brother with a look that screamed he understood it. Second senior brother blinked and smiled in a gentle manner at his spot. Once he heard Hu Zi's words, surprise, disbelief, hesitation, admiration, anticipation, and all sorts of other emotions appeared in his eyes. The changes on his face would have been indiscernible if the people looking at him did not know him well. Hu Zi saw it and had a feeling that something was off, but he knew that he absolutely must not reveal that he did not understand what his second senior brother had just said. He repeatedly told himself that he was the smartest on the ninth summit and understood everything. That was why he lifted his chin and puffed out his chest before nodding at his second senior brother sternly. A serious look soon appeared on second senior brother's face. He patted Hu Zi's shoulders as if he was about to say something to him, but eventually chose to let out a long sigh before a respectful replaced the seriousness on his face. That uneasiness in Hu Zi's heart grew stronger, but he kept the nonchalant look on his face. Ziche remained sitting cross-legged on the platform. He was still. The phantom aura from the black arrow surrounded his right leg, causing the slight red flush on his face to quickly fade away. As second senior brother patted Hu Zi's shoulders, Su Ming turned around to look at Bai Su. "Now, will you lead the way for the three of us to Northern Frontier Tribe?" Su Ming's voice was calm, but the murderous aura in his right eye and the calmness in his left eye created a strange feeling that made it seem that both things had fused together, causing those who saw it to feel shaken to the core. Bai Su dipped her head down and fell silent for a moment before lifting her head and looking at Su Ming. She nodded gently. The moment she did so, Su Ming walked over and wrapped his arm around her waist, eliciting a cry of surprise from her. He turned into a long arc and flew into the sky while holding her tightly. Bai Su's vision blurred and her view turned indistinct. Her heart pounded and raced against her chest. The strong presence that belonged to a man wafted into her nose. Not only did she hear her own heartbeat, she also felt Su Ming's. That strange feeling made her cheeks turn redder. Even if she was with Sima Xin, they would at most only hold hands. Due to Sima Xin's worries and Bai Su's nervousness, they did nothing more than holding hands, which was why things like her being held had never happened before. When Su Ming took hold of Bai Su and flew into the sky, Hu Zi took a big swig from his pot of wine and followed after with a vicious sneer on his face. Second senior brother's face remained gentle and, with a smile on his lips, he placed his hands behind his back and walked into the sky. Every single time his feet landed, a faint light would flash in the air. As his speed increased, it looked like a green arc was slicing through the sky. Behind those three, an indistinct wisp of black smoke followed behind. That black smoke drifted about and could not be discovered easily, but if anyone did manage to notice it and observed it closely, they would discover a shocking bloodlust within. That faint black smoke was naturally that one slave from the 300 the eldest senior brother owned. He was following the orders of his young master to protect his junior brothers. When the time came, he would cast the strongest skill from their tribe, the Forbidden Curse. Behind that wisp of black smoke, in the smoke that even the eldest senior brother's slave did not notice, was an old man dressed in white. That old man had an excited look on his face and continuously rubbed his hands together. Sometimes, he would roll up his sleeves to reveal thin and dried up arms while a brilliant light shone in his eyes as he followed behind them cautiously. Are they going to fight? This is going to be fun. Fourth isn't dumb. At least he knows to not fight alone. Group fights are the only exciting fights. I can't let them know I'm following behind them. If I do this, it'll be more exciting. But these brats just can't match up to me when I was young. If they knew to go fight in a group, then why didn't they know they should also wear masks? The old man was, of course, Tian Xiezi. Besides the excited look on his face, there was also enthusiasm simmering within him. However, dissatisfaction soon appeared on his face. This was the first time since many years that the entire Ninth Summit ventured out together. Together, they charged towards Northern Frontier. If Zhou Zhe, the Black Arrow Berserker of Northern Frontier, knew beforehand that injuring Ziche would bring about such a result, bringing out the monsters of the Ninth Summit that happened to be connected to each other by a master and disciple relationship, then perhaps he would have immediately turned back when he saw Ziche and would not have bothered him. It takes about a day to reach Northern Frontier Tribe from Freezing Sky Clan. They're both on the ice plains, but they're quite different. Their tribe isn't built on ice mountains or frozen rivers, but on a snow plain. Bai Su felt the cold from the wind seeping into her bones as they continued flying in the air while Su Ming held her. She shuddered, then immediately felt warmth traveling from Su Ming's body to hers. With that warmth around, the chilling wind also seemed gentler to the skin. Bai Su's cheeks were flushed red, and she spoke in a low voice after remaining silent for a while. It could be said that she was recalling everything she remembered about Northern Frontier Tribe so that she could help Su Ming and the others to make detailed preparations. Northern Frontier Tribe is very big and looks like a city, but there aren't any walls surrounding it. They only use ice to make their houses. To the people of Northern Frontier Tribe, ice and snow are part of their lives, they cannot put up a wall and separate it from their lives. There are two giant statues right before Northern Frontier Tribe. The two statues are carved in the image of two ferocious and malicious spirits fighting against each other. Their big bodies form the gate to Northern Frontier Tribe. Bai Su's voice echoed in the howling wind, her words falling not only into Su Ming's ears, but Huzi and his second senior brothers too. In the past, it was said that there were 3 Green Arrow Berserkers who were as strong as those within the Berserker Soul Realm. One of them was even halfway to the Purple Arrow. This powerful tribe might not have been a big tribe, but it was strong enough to make big tribes fear them. The great tribe of Freezing Sky paid a great price in subduing them as well. They managed to kill the elder of Northern Frontier Tribe, who was the person who was halfway through to becoming a Purple Arrow Berserker, and also killed another Green Arrow Berserker before managing to conquer Phantom Deus and changing their name to Northern Frontier. The only remaining powerful Berserker who was at the level of the Berserker Soul Realm in Northern Frontier was the tribe's chief of war in the past. That person escaped death by a hair's breadth, but before long, due to his largely reduced life force, he died. The Northern Frontier Tribe now may no longer be as great as they were in the past, but they still cannot be underestimated. As one of the 4 great branches of the great tribe of Freezing Sky, Northern Frontier Tribe definitely has powerful berserkers at the Berserker Soul Realm defending them, because the elders of these branches in the past had to go to the great tribe of Freezing Sky to train when they attained great completion in the Bone Sacrifice Realm. Only when they reached the Berserker Soul Realm would they be given the title of Elder. There was a period of time where Northern Frontier Tribe had no elder leading them for more than 2,000 years, but I remember reading in one of the ancient scrolls that 100-something years ago, an elder that Freezing Sky approved of appeared in Northern Frontier Tribe. That person's name is Mo Shan, Bai Su quickly explained. Half a day passed by as the 4 of them continued dashing forward. The land was filled with a vast expanse of white, the end of which could not be seen at first glance. All they could see was the sky and earth that were filled with ice and snow. They seldom saw anyone moving towards them as they flew in the sky. It was as if there were no longer any living souls within the world, and the only ones left were their group. There were no tracks of anyone walking on the ground either. If a normal person trudged upon this land filled with ice, snow, mountain ranges, and plains, they would definitely die. The wind moaned like ghosts crying and wolves howling. Snow hurricanes would occasionally appear on the land and blow in all directions while moving the snow on the ground, creating a shocking sight to behold. This was a white world. It was a world of ice and snow, a world where no other color could be seen. Besides the elder Mo Shan, there are 4 other leaders in Northern Frontier Tribe. They're the Chief of War, Chief of the Hunters, Phantom Equal, and Spirit Chief. The power of these 4 people is so great it cannot be discerned. Even if they're not at the Berserker Soul Realm, they should not be too far from it. We have to be especially careful of the Phantom Equal among them. There is a rumor about him that people seldom hear. I only read about this legend in an ancient, broken scroll. It said that up till now, no one has ever seen the face of the Phantom Equal of Phantom Deus tribe, ever since the tribe appeared in the land of South Morning. Neither have they seen his clothes, his voice, or his actions. Over the years, he has created a presence among others, which is what led to this rumor. The Phantom Equal of Phantom Deus will never die and will never be destroyed. The Phantom Equal will only be one person for all eternity. Bai Su's voice gained a hushed quality as it echoed in the other 3 people's ears. In the moaning wind, a mysterious quality was added to her words when she uttered them. Youngest junior brother, this lass knows a lot of things. This is good. A smile appeared on second senior brother's lips, and he cast an approving look at Bai Su. Bai Su quickly returned a smile to second senior brother from Su Ming's embrace. Thank you for your praise, Uncle Master. I just like reading. You can refer to me as second senior brother like my youngest junior brother does, second senior brother said with a smile. A red flush colored Bai Su's face once again. She had no idea why, but she was blushing quite frequently this day. Why is there no tribe leader? Su Ming suddenly asked. This was exactly what second senior brother was about to ask too. As for Huzi, he continued drinking as he kept his gaze in front of them while occasionally licking his lips, revealing a hint of ruthlessness. He did not listen to Bai Su's words. In his mind, He would just beat up all those he met, and there would be people naturally reminding him how to fight these people when the time came. To him, that was what smart people should do. Northern Frontier Tribe still retains the customs left behind by their ancestors when they were still Phantom Deus tribe. They don't have a tribe leader. Their tribe leader is something without substance. I heard that he's a malicious spirit in the world, but it's just a mere symbolism, Bai Su answered softly. A thought flitted through Su Ming's mind. Once he heard of the things related to Northern Frontier Tribe, especially about the tribe leader, the first thing that appeared in his head was the old man from Lizard Shaman tribe summoning the giant lizard totem. That giant lizard was also just a symbol and a mere totem. Northern Frontier, Phantom Deus. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. Time slowly passed by in this manner. Their speed increased, and when dusk arrived, Bai Su's breathing suddenly quickened. We're here. Chapter 286, Northern Frontier Tribe. Su Ming came to a halt, while Hu Zi took a few steps forward by his side. With his wine gourd in hand, his eyes were gradually tainted with bloodlust. As for the second senior brother, he had his hands behind his back and stood nearby in a relaxed manner. It was a pity that the sun was covered by the clouds. But even if the land was still bright, it was not hot. About 10,000 feet ahead of Su Ming and the rest of them were many big buildings built on a large expanse of snow. As wind blew past, the snow would be lifted from the ground. Right before Su Ming were two giant statues. These two statues were carved in the image of malicious phantoms fighting against each other. A heinous, murderous aura spread from within the two statues without restraint, and filled the entire area with it. Behind the two giant malicious phantom statues were rows upon rows of neatly arranged houses. These houses were all made from ice and connected in a long, unbroken line. With just one glance, it was hard to find the end of that line. This was a tribe bigger than a city. The enormous size of the tribe was not due to how grand it looked, but due to its length. It seemed endless, stretching far into the distant land. If anyone stood in the sky high above the tribe and looked at the ground, then they would be able to see that the buildings within Northern Frontier Tribe were positioned in a manner that they formed the shape of an arrow on the vast and endless plain of snow. It was like the mark of a gigantic arrow that was branded on the land belonging to Northern Frontier Tribe. Beneath the snow plains were layers upon layers of snow that continued sinking into the snow plains. The bottommost layer, which touched the earth buried under the snow plains, had the least amount of snow. If a person could see far ahead, beyond the snow plains, they would find hints of green growing on the ground, which was also located much lower than the snow plains itself. If that person could see even farther ahead, they would find birds flying about and flowers blooming. This snow plain was like a ravine that separated winter and summer. Northern Frontier Tribe existed within this land, a land that made it seem as if the great tribe of Freezing Sky was located south, but was in truth a place that was located to the north in the maps detailing the topography of the land of South Morning. The tribe stayed here defending the northern gate of the great tribe of Freezing Sky. This is just one part of Northern Frontier Tribe on the Great Frozen Plains. There's another part of the tribe underneath the snow plains, Bai Su said softly. Northern Frontier Tribe has retained the customs of Phantom Deus. All their berserkers have very long hair. If they fight against outsiders, those who die will lose their heads. If they fight among themselves, the person who loses will have a choice. He can choose to cut off his own head or cut off his hair. That is why if a person has very long hair, it means he seldom loses. It might also be that he has never lost before, Bai Su whispered, looking at Su Ming. Once she finished speaking, she hesitated for a moment. Su Ming, I would suggest all of you to wear hoods. If you do that, I think it might be easier for all of you. The moment Bai Su finished speaking, but before Su Ming could manage to say anything in return, second senior brother gave the girl an approving look. He then turned to Su Ming. Youngest junior disciple, this lass is very good. But lass, I've already made preparations for this a long time ago. Second senior brother smiled gently and lifted his right hand to bring out a number of black hoods from his bosom. Ahem, as disciples of the Ninth Summit, we have no need to hide our faces. In fact, it's below our dignity to hide our faces, but, a stern look appeared on second senior brother's face when he looked at Su Ming and Hu Zi. We have to be considerate of our master. He's already old, and his mind can't react fast enough for him to formulate lies, so we have to find an excuse for him. No. We're not worried about showing our faces, but for our master, for our old man, we have to bear with this shame and wear the hood. Hu Zi blinked, then nodded his head firmly in understanding. You're right. Ah, this is for master. We're doing this for master. Second senior brother, I can bear with this. I will bear with it. As he spoke, he snatched a hood and covered his head, which left only his eyes to be seen. He snickered. Third senior brother, I'm sorry you have to go through this. Second senior brother patted Hu Zi's shoulder with a touched expression on his face. Second senior brother, we're doing this for master, this insult is nothing. Hu Zi stopped snickering and a resolute look appeared in his eyes. We're all master's good disciples. Youngest junior brother, what about you? Second senior brother handed a hood to Su Ming. Su Ming took it with an odd expression on his face, but he still covered his head with it without a word. Bai Su widened her eyes where she stood by the side. She had a sudden feeling that she had never come to understand the ninth summit as clearly as she did at that moment. Just what are these people? Bai Su rubbed the center of her brows. She had thought that convincing these people to wear a hood would be difficult, but the strange development made her suddenly think that she was far too young and inexperienced compared to these people. Master, for you, we will suffer through this injustice, but we're doing this willingly because we're your good disciples. We love you. Second senior brother lifted his head and puffed out his chest before putting on the hood. He winked at Su Ming and Hu Zi, then threw the leftover hood down as if he did not just do it intentionally and charged towards Northern Frontier Tribe in a long arc. Hu Zi stomped the ground with his right foot, and as snow scattered in the air, he dashed after his second senior brother. Find a safe place and wait for me. Su Ming cast a glance at Bai Su and leapt into the air to chase after his second senior brother and Hu Zi. The three of them were like shooting stars traveling in the sky, and their destination was Northern Frontier Tribe. Bai Su stood there and watched the three of them. She remained silent for a moment before she sat down cross-legged. There were hints of worry along with a complicated look on her face. In the sky, the three disciples of the ninth summit closed in rapidly on Northern Frontier Tribe, side by side. Second senior brother, is master really behind us? An excited and savage look appeared in Hu Zi's eyes when he asked softly. Of course, master is even faster than we are. Besides, when we left the ninth summit, I saw him peeking at us in white with my own eyes, second senior brother whispered in a hushed tone. I saw him too, Su Ming offered in a whisper. Ha ha, then there's no mistake about it. I left a hood for master. We can kill as much as we want today. We'll kill that little birdie, and even if it's a serious matter, the master is there to hold the line. There's nothing for us to be afraid of. Second senior brother had clearly become excited as well. His eyes sparkled. How will we kill them? Hu Zi pulled the hood back and licked his lips. Third, fourth, I'll tell you the rule of the ninth summit today. This is what our eldest senior brother told me in the past. Second senior brother looked at Su Ming and Hu Zi. Kill those who have harmed even a single plant of ninth summit. Kill those who have harmed even a single follower of ninth summit. Kill all the berserkers of the tribe of the person who harmed even a single disciple of the ninth summit. The ninth summit will never cause trouble, but if someone provokes us, then we will use murder to tell them that the ninth summit is not someone they can offend. That is why we will look for Zhou Zhe, and if anyone stops us, they'll die. There was a murderous aura within second senior brother's words, and his voice was as cold as ice. Hu Zi sucked in a deep breath, then pulled the hood back on his head. A blood-red light appeared in his eyes. However, after a moment of hesitation, he turned to look at his second senior brother while flying forward. Second senior brother, why didn't you help me when I was bullied last time? That doesn't fit the rules of the ninth summit. Hu Zi was very dissatisfied. If you didn't peek at me every single night, I'd help you as well. Second senior brother shook his head and sighed deeply. Su Ming did not speak. Green light shone at the center of his brows and the murderous aura in his right eye spread through his entire body, causing him to look like an arrow filled with killing intent. With one single charge, he flew to the forefront of the three of them. As they charged forward, the distance between them and Northern Frontier Tribe grew shorter. At the same time, at the spot where Bai Su had sat down behind them, She had cast some unknown art and her body gradually faded away until she looked almost invisible and was as unnoticeable as a spectral. Yet right then, Bai Su's eyes flew open and she nearly cried out in surprise. A layer of black smoke had appeared before her. That black smoke filled the air and was charging forward through the snow plains. In the span of a breath, it had traveled 10,000 feet and was already far away from her. "Lass, don't make a sound." The cause for Bai Su's held back scream was the old voice that fell into her ears. Soon, she saw an old man dressed in white robes walking forth from the snow plains on her side. That old man had his back bent and was walking towards her with light footsteps. When he was before Bai Su, he placed his index finger to his mouth and made a shushing sound. A strange expression immediately appeared on Bai Su's face. She had seen this old man before and knew that he was Su Ming's master, Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi lowered his head and picked up the hood second senior brother had thrown down while mumbling under his breath. "Those brats sure are sly, at least they knew to bring hoods with them. Looks like they're not dumb, after all. They even left one for me, shoot. Did they see me?" The white-robed Tian Xiezi pulled the hood over his head as he continued mumbling, then turned around to look at the stunned Bai Su. A smile appeared on his face. "Hey, you must be that young companion of my fourth disciple. So, do I look good?" Bai Su was stunned. She instinctively nodded her head. A pleased look immediately appeared on the white-robed Tian Xiezi's face. He turned around and walked in the direction Su Ming and the other two had taken to Northern Frontier Tribe. The instant Su Ming and the other two arrived 10,000 feet away from Northern Frontier Tribe, the people within it noticed them. However, the treatment given to Su Ming and the other two by this tribe was completely different compared to the other tribes Su Ming had run into in the past. If it was any other tribe, someone would have flown out a long time ago to stop them. Yet Northern Frontier Tribe was not so. When they noticed Su Ming and the other two approaching, only a few of the tribe members stopped whatever they were doing and lifted their heads to look at the sky coldly. Most of the rest chose to ignore them. In an instant, Su Ming and his brothers arrived at the gate formed by the two statues. With a smile, second senior brother took one step forward and wrapped his fist in his palm to bow towards the Northern Frontier Tribe members who were looking at them coldly but were not saying a single word. "I am Gong Sun Hu of Freezing Sky Clan's third summit. I would like to meet Brother Zhou Zhe. Please tell him on my behalf." The people who were looking at them coldly from behind Northern Frontier Tribe's gate continued remaining silent. Second senior brother shook his head. "You are all far too rude. This is not good." While speaking, he took one step forward. The moment his foot landed, the earth suddenly trembled and a large amount of snow shot into the air. It blotted out the entire sky and earth, causing the Northern Frontier Tribe members who had been looking at them coldly to change their expressions drastically. "Give us Zhou Zhe. Anyone who tried to stop us, die." Hu Zi lifted his arms, and a gigantic battle axe materialized in his left hand. He took a big swig from the gourd in his right hand and charged forth. Chapter 287. The Ninth Summit broke into Northern Frontier. Hu Zi was like a tiger jumping down a mountain. Once his feet landed on the ground, the snow there flew into the air, causing the area to look clouded, but from that indistinct view, he charged abruptly out with the giant axe now in his right hand. Su Ming had never seen that axe before. The blade was rusted in several places, but the axe's handle was made with a beast bone. When Hu Zi stormed out, a faint tiger's howl that shook the skies broke through Northern Frontier Tribe's gate. Second senior brother held himself in an imposing manner that made him seem like a tidal wave. That one step he took had caused the earth to tremble, and as snow shot into the air, green appeared under his foot. Grass had completely covered the area over there in a bizarre fashion. "You are far too rude. I was courteous towards you, and yet you treated me like this. You went too far this time." Second senior brother's face was flushed with rage and his smile was no longer present. Moving forward, he lifted his right hand and waved it towards the people who came to stop them from entering. When he waved his arm, green appeared on the white snow and fell on the hair and shoulders of the three people charging towards second senior brother. Snow spread through the bodies of these ferocious-looking Northern Frontier Tribe members. Almost at the same moment, Green grass shot out from underneath the feet of these 3 Northern Frontier tribe members who had rushed out, covering their bodies at a monstrous speed. When the 3 arrived before second senior brother, their whole bodies had already been covered by green grass and their faces were as pale as death itself. They struggled but could not move. Second senior brother, it's not that they're rude, it's because we're wearing hoods. No matter how polite you are to them, anyone who sees us coming will know what we want to do, so why would they bother being FC King courteous to you? Huzi was swinging his axe not too far away, but he still did not forget to turn his head back to shout at his second senior brother. Second senior brother was momentarily stunned and touched the hood covering his face instinctively before he shook his head and sighed deeply. I didn't manage to frame Gong Sun Hu. That bugger should consider himself lucky. Su Ming had a calm expression on his face, and only the murderous aura in his right eye was revealed. He moved forward, but without the shocking, imposing manner of his second senior brother or the domineering pressure of Huzi. Yet as he moved, he held a green sword in his hand, and lightning sparked at the tip of the sword. Right before him, there were 3 people storming toward him. Su Ming let them. The moment he was about to cross paths with them, he suddenly increased his speed and moved away from them so quickly that he seemed to have overlapped his body with theirs for an instant when he moved past them. Immediately, blood gushed out from the 3 people's necks and their heads fell to the ground. Su Ming calmly held the sword in his hand and moved forward. The 3 brothers were within Northern Frontier Tribe's gate, right under the 2 giant, malicious phantom statues. Behind them was the vast snow plain where freezing wind moaned in the air. Before them was the large Northern Frontier Tribe whose end could not be seen. The sounds of war drums being hit reverberated through the air and traveled forth from deep within Northern Frontier Tribe. The war drums were deep and exuded an oppressive presence. It spread through the air, telling the entire tribe that they were attacked by strong enemies. People charged out from within the tribe and stormed towards where the 3 brothers were. There were also quite a number of normal Northern Frontier Tribe members around Su Ming and the other 2. They looked different from the normal people Su Ming had seen before. Not much fear could be seen on their faces. In fact, very few of them left in panic. At most, they retreated a little, making enough space between themselves and the attackers, before stopping still and watching the 3 of them coldly. There were many people who had charged out from the tribe. With just one glance, Su Ming counted at least a few dozen of them. As they closed in, they split into 3 parts and stormed towards Su Ming, Huzi, and second senior brother. Huzi grinned, took a big swig of alcohol, then took an unstable step forward. He placed the axe by his side, spread out his arms, and shouted towards the sky. Enter, dream. His shout shook the sky and earth, and the Northern Frontier Tribe members who had split into 3 parts were all stunned, but they were only taken aback for a moment. Snoring sounds echoed in the air, and Huzi fell to the side just like when Su Ming fought against Sima Xin, deep in sleep. A strange look appeared on Su Ming's face. Second senior brother sighed and moved to where Huzi was to kick him. With that one kick, Huzi immediately opened his eyes and picked up the axe beside him with embarrassment on his face. Third, don't always enter your dreams. Second senior brother shook his head and walked towards the dozens of Northern Frontier people. He lifted his arms, and immediately, green appeared on his hands. He slammed them on the ground. The snow on the ground rapidly melted and green grass rose before it started growing in a bizarre manner, turning the entire area into a plain of grass. The moment the Northern Frontier Tribe members charging towards second senior brother arrived, the grass on the ground broke off from its roots and charged towards those people like arrows. Huzi was angered by what had happened just now and picked up his axe to engage the dozen people charging towards him. This was the first time Su Ming witnessed Huzi's valor. He did not care about pain or getting injured at all. With a terrifying force, he rushed into the crowd like a fierce tiger and started slaughtering those people. There was one thing that caught Su Ming's attention. Every single time Huzi was attacked, a light would flash and he would appear to be completely unharmed. It was as if there was a layer of invisible armor around him, causing the blows that landed on him to be painless. Huzi threw his back and laughed. As he continued with his slaughter, his eyes filled with red. Eventually, he spread his arms and made the gesture as if he was about to enter his dream again, but right then, second senior brother let out a fake cough. Only then did Hu Zi stop. Su Ming moved to his side. The Northern Frontier tribe members all had different levels of cultivation, but the instant they got close, lightning shot out from around Su Ming and spread swiftly in all directions. The lightning appeared too suddenly, and all the people who were enveloped in it froze momentarily. The second they did so, Su Ming charged forth. Green light swept through his foes, and a dozen heads flew into the air in the midst of blood. After Su Ming killed these dozen people, he lifted his head and shouted towards the deeper parts of Northern Frontier tribe, "Zhou Zhe, come out." Before the echoes of his shout faded away, cracking sounds came from around Hu Zi, and a loud rumbling shot into the sky. An invisible, mirror-like thing shattered around Hu Zi's body. The numerous invisible shards shot out in all directions from around him, causing the people who had surrounded him to fall back screaming as their bodies were shot full of holes. "Hey, holes, this is your grandpa Hu's latest invention, the invincible armor." Hu Zi shouted towards the sky proudly. "Zhou Zhe, come out." It was also at that moment that second senior brother swept away the snow on his clothes. Before him were a dozen corpses that had been pierced by grass. He lifted his head and looked towards the deeper part of Northern Frontier tribe with a faint smile. He, too, shouted those 4 words. "Zhou Zhe, come out." Their voices fused together and turned into a powerful sound wave that rumbled through the entire area. The normal Northern Frontier tribe members could no longer remain unperturbed. Their expressions drastically changed. Bone sacrifice. That person who used grass to kill is a powerful berserker in the bone sacrifice realm. Just what is going on with that man with the axe? How could he resist so many hits? It may have seemed to explode at the end, but the ones who were injured were our tribe members. There's also the one with the green light flashing and lightning swimming around his body. His power may not be great, but he's incredibly fast. Yet by the looks of it, he should be the weakest among the 3 of them. About 100,000 feet away from Su Ming was the middle part of Northern Frontier tribe. There were a large amount of ice buildings over there. The faint sounds of fighting from the tribe's gate had become much weaker when they reached that particular section. There were numerous Northern Frontier tribe members over there, and their expressions were all aloof, as if they were unconcerned with the battle at the front of the tribe. There was a house that was clearly much taller than the other ice houses in the middle section of Northern Frontier tribe, and outside that house was a bonfire. 3 men sat beside it. They were 3 middle-aged men, and all of them had hair that reached their waists. Their hair was braided so that it would not look messy. They sat by the fire with calm expressions as their followers standing by their side roasted a small beast. At times, they would wipe some spices on the food. "I bet they won't be able to come here," one of the 3 men said calmly. "That won't do. Of course they won't be able to come here. We talked about gambling time, right? I bet that within an hour, their heads will be hanging at the gate," another person said, smiling. "All right then, I'll bet 2 hours. That person who's good at using grass doesn't seem too bad. He should be able to live a little longer. If that's the case, I'll bet on the time for 1 incense stick. Don't forget, while the front section is occupied by those who are only affiliated to us and they don't have any warriors from Phantom Deus tribe, but the one who led the team out to patrol today is Yu Lin. His power is around the same level as mine. I even heard that he already has a black thread in his arrow aura. His phantom is about to go through the second transformation as well." The 3 of them spoke as if they were completely unbothered by what was happening in front of their tribe. Instead, they decided to turn it into their entertainment and started betting against each other. Yet as the 3 of them spoke, a dark voice traveled out from the house behind them that was clearly different from the other ice houses in the middle section of Northern Frontier tribe. "I bet that they can come here, and I will drink their blood and tear off their hair to give it to that useless little brother of mine, Zhou Zhe." When that voice spoke, the bonfire in the middle of the 3 people dimmed a little, as if it no longer dared burn too wantonly. The 3 men immediately stood up and bowed towards the ice house with devout expressions tainted with zealousness. If things were quiet in the middle section of Northern Frontier tribe, then it was much more so for those living at the later section on the snow plains. The tribe members who could stay there were all of much higher status. Besides the sound of war drums echoing there, it was completely silent. No sound of battle reached that place. There were hundreds of houses there, and in each of those houses, a strong presence resided. Chapter 288, Enter Dream. Right at the end of the hundreds of houses was the end of the snow plains, a cliff with an abyss underneath, stretching hundreds of thousands of feet downwards. The cliff was dyed white by snow, and at the edge of it was an ice house. There was a big white tree with black leaves next to it. There were cracks on the tree trunk that grouped together to form a human face with his eyes closed. Underneath the cliff was the other part of Northern Frontier Tribe. If anyone stood at the edge of the cliff and looked down, they would see that the other part of Northern Frontier Tribe below the cliff was actually a city. In truth, while the people staying at the front section may be Northern Frontier Tribe members, they were not part of Phantom Deus Tribe. This was something not even Bai Su knew. The ones staying there were other tribes that were forced to surrender to the great tribe of Freezing Sky when the tribe became powerful in the past. They merged with Phantom Deus, and that was how Northern Frontier was formed. In truth, there were blood descendants from several tribes within Northern Frontier Tribe. Among them, Phantom Deus was the strongest. That was why Phantom Deus was in control of the tribe. Since the past, all the elders who were chosen also came from Phantom Deus. Even if the distinction between the different bloodlines have faded, but under the might of Phantom Deus Tribe, those who were not from Phantom Deus Tribe could only stay at the front of the tribe. This was related to the customs of Phantom Deus. They believed that those who stayed in front were subordinates, and only those who stayed at the back were the masters. At that moment, at the forefront of Northern Frontier Tribe, the tribal land that stretched out hundreds of thousands of feet, stood a middle-aged man with a ghastly expression and hair that reached his waist. He wore clothes made of beast skins and held a bow made of bone. Blue aura surrounded that bow, and a faint black thread could be seen within that blue aura. Behind him were nearly 100 Northern Frontier Tribe members standing in silence. However, these people did not have bows in their hands because they were not from Phantom Deus Tribe. Yet they still listened to the man with the bow. Within Northern Frontier Tribe, those who could obtain bows were worthy of respect. The middle-aged man's gaze was like lightning when he looked at Su Ming and the other two fighting with another batch of dozens of Northern Frontier berserkers tens of thousands of feet away. A scornful and condescending sneer appeared on his lips. If it wasn't because the great tribe of Freezing Sky used a despicable method to win, then Freezing Sky Clan would be known as Phantom Deus Clan right now, the man said in a chilling voice. The blue aura in the bow in his hands coiled up as if it was responding to his words. Sir Yu Lin, they're looking for Zhou Zhe, a man from Northern Frontier Tribe standing beside the middle-aged man said in a low voice. Are you saying that since they're looking for people of Phantom Deus Tribe, that's why your people don't have to fight against them? The middle-aged man asked coldly as he turned around and stared at the man. It was clear that the man's status was also quite high, yet under Yu Lin's gaze, especially when he saw the blue aura around the bow in his hand turning into a phantom shadow and opening its mouth to howl soundlessly, sweat gradually beaded on the man's forehead. He lowered his head. I wouldn't dare. If you don't dare, then shut up. Yu Lin's gaze turned colder. But, sir, the man gritted his teeth, then lifted his head swiftly and looked at Yu Lin. With your power and your phantom, if you act now, then fewer of my tribesmen will have to die. And these aren't just my thoughts alone, the other tribes have the same thoughts. The man's heart pounded against his chest. If it was not because he saw many of his tribe's berserkers dying and he felt his heart aching in pain for them, he would definitely not have said that. Yu Lin stared at the man. After a long while, a cold sneer appeared on his lips. He lifted his right hand and patted the man's shoulders. You're right, it's about time this farce ended. With his right hand raised, Yu Lin pointed at Su Ming and the others. All warriors of the tribes in Northern Frontier Tribe's front get together and take the heads of those 3 people there. Anyone who doesn't go will be considered a traitor and be punished accordingly. Sir, the man froze momentarily, then frowned. Do it, or die. Yu Lin narrowed his eyes and killing intent appeared within them. The man fell silent, then gritted his teeth and let out a low growl before he bounded forward and charged towards the battleground tens of thousands of feet away. Behind him, the other Northern Frontier Tribe members that numbered to nearly 100 rushed out in silence. These people charged towards Su Ming and the others like a billowing tidal wave. At the same time, low growls echoed in the front section of Northern Frontier Tribe. More berserkers turned into mere shadows and stormed towards Su Ming and the other two. When almost all of the berserkers within the front section of Northern Frontier Tribe rushed out, Yulin licked his lips and watched the sight. Kill as much as you want. This is a rare chance. This time, perhaps my phantom will get enough blood and complete the second transformation. At the Northern Frontier Gate, Su Ming, Hu Zi, and second senior brother traveled about like 3 long arcs. All those who tried to stop them in their path died. Behind them, the ground was covered in grass. Besides blood, there were also dozens of corpses lying on the grass. Hu Zi had already killed until he went into a frenzy. As he drank, he swung his axe. On his body, there seemed to be an unknown number of layers of invisible armor. Right then, as he fought right in front of the 3 of them, he howled, and completely ignored the blows landing on his body. Second senior brother employed a more gentle method. He did not do something as gruesome as Hu Zi, but there was also practically no need for him to act. Most of the time, before anyone could even get close to him, they would turn into human plants and die. Over at Su Ming's side, the murderous aura in his right eye was thick, and a layer of lightning swam around him. Anyone who touched that lightning would find themselves freezing for a moment, and what awaited those people would be their heads flying in the air. The small virescent sword in Su Ming's hand continued dripping with fresh blood. Even if Su Ming had his eyes closed, he could still sense what was happening around him with his divine sense. Even as he moved forward, he could still observe what was happening to Hu Zi and his second senior brother. There was a relaxed air coming from his calm demeanor. Second senior brother, the people here aren't from Phantom Deus tribe, Su Ming said languidly, walking forward. If the people of Phantom Deus tribe refuse to come out, then we will slaughter until they come out. Second senior brother smiled and moved forward. Su Ming and his 2 senior brothers continued with the slaughter and almost entered the front section of Northern Frontier Tribe when, suddenly, roars traveled forth, and more than 100 berserkers charged towards them from up ahead. There were 7 people leading the charge, and all of them held power that would not lose to Ziche. When they got closer, they looked like a swarm that had covered the sky and earth under the light from the dark sky. With his divine sense, Su Ming immediately noticed a person looking towards them from several tens of thousands of feet behind the incoming people. That person had a cruel smirk on his face and held a big bow in his hand. His hair was so long that it reached his waist. Right at the instant these 100 or so berserkers charged towards them, a glare appeared in second senior brother's eyes. He was just about to move forward when Su Ming also lifted his foot and Han Mountain Bell began faintly forming behind him. Far too many things happened at that instant. The berserkers charged forward madly, and in the distance, anticipation and eagerness appeared in Yulin's eyes. The blue aura around the bow in his hand started swaying fiercely, and turned into the phantom shadow. Within its eyes were greed and bloodlust. The 7 people at the front of the charging berserkers had unwilling looks on their faces, but they had to attack. In the land behind Su Ming, a wisp of black smoke was charging forth, and behind that black smoke was a thin old man walking forth with his hands behind his back. All these things froze in an instant due to one thing. Hu Zi stood before his 2 brothers. Right at the moment those 100-something berserkers closed in, he loosened his grip on the axe. It landed with a thud on the snow. The wine gourd in his left hand no longer had any wine left, but he still placed it to his lips and seemingly drank a huge mouthful from it before he let go. The wine gourd fell to the ground, and as it fell, Hu Zi spread his arms wide and looked at the sky. Enter, dream. His soft first syllable soon turned into a shocking roar. That roar reverberated through the air and covered an area of 10,000 feet of the front section of Northern Frontier Tribe. As his voice echoed in the air, that wine gourd crashed into the ground with a bang. As if it was a coincidence, when that sound rang out, Hu Zi's eyes fell shut. Right then, an indescribable pressure swept out with his body acting as the center. A thick alcoholic scent filled the air, along with snoring sounds. The places where the sound and alcoholic scent passed through made Su Ming widen his eyes and suck in a sharp breath. Those charging berserkers suddenly froze, and with confused looks on their faces, they shut their eyes and fell to the ground. At that instant, the area of 10,000 feet at the front section of Northern Frontier Tribe turned into a land where everyone was in deep sleep. Besides Su Ming and his second senior brother, all the living souls closed their eyes and fell unconscious. "Enter, dream," Su Ming mumbled. He looked at Hu Zi. At that moment, Hu Zi stood on the ground with his eyes closed as if he was in deep sleep. Second senior brother was momentarily stunned before an ecstatic look appeared on his face and he laughed heartily. Third made it. Yet the moment second senior brother's laughter left his lips, a sharp whistle that shocked the skies traveled forth from tens of thousands of feet away, bringing with it an indescribable killing intent. It was an arrow. It was an arrow surrounded by blue aura, and as the aura floated through the air, it turned into a malicious phantom. That malicious phantom surrounded the arrow, and with a nigh indescribable speed, charged towards Hu Zi. Every single inch of earth that the arrow passed through started cracking. All those within its path, be it the buildings or the Northern Frontier Tribe members, would be destroyed abruptly. The buildings would crumble, and the living would have their flesh and skin disappear, turning into skeletons. They were all absorbed by that arrow. Like thunder, it turned into the one and only sound in the sky. Tens of thousands of feet away, Yulin still had his hand lifted up. The bowstring he let loose was still trembling and humming. There was anger lying underneath his ferocious expression. At that moment, everything in Su Ming's sight became blurry. The only thing he saw was Hu Zi, who had his eyes closed, and the charging arrow. There was no communication between him and his second senior brother beside him, but the two of them seemed to have known what the other was thinking, and the both of them did two completely different things. Su Ming took one step forward, and as if piercing through air itself, he rushed towards Hu Zi. Second senior brother also took one step forward, but he did not move towards Hu Zi. Instead, he charged towards Yulin, whose bow was still humming in the distance. Chapter 289. The Wind from the Cold Sky. Su Ming's speed reached an unbelievable pace in an instant. Yulin had always thought that while his arrow might not be the fastest in his tribe, but it was definitely much faster than a berserker. If the person he wanted to kill had the ability to dodge the arrow himself, then he would have a possibility of dodging the arrow during the entire process the arrow was shot from the bow. However, if the person did not have the ability to do so and required outside assistance, then when he shot that arrow, he was confident no one would be able to save him at that instant. When he saw Su Ming's actions, besides the thought that appeared in Yulin's head, there was only derision and condescendence. Yet just as he started mocking Su Ming in his head, that derision instantly froze and was replaced by disbelief and shock. In Yulin's eyes, when Su Ming took that one step forward, two figures appeared. One of them maintained the action of when Su Ming took that one step, while the other shockingly appeared right before Hu Zi, and the moment that figure appeared, the arrow also closed in. With his own eyes, Yulin saw that young man with the monstrous murderous aura in his right eye and the calmness in his left eye, lifting his right hand and drawing a line. He did it as if he was drawing a picture in the direction of the approaching arrow and the ferocious phantom shadow formed by the blue aura. With that one stroke, it was as if the entire world disappeared in Yulin's eyes. The only thing left was that one line, its trajectory, and the arc formed when the youth's finger drew that line. It was as if that trajectory had opened the gate connecting the sky and earth. During that instant, the sky and earth fused together. During that instant, the weather changed, and that one single instant turned into a moment that seemed like it would exist for eternity. With that one line, Su Ming's finger slashed through the approaching arrow, and that arrow turned into two halves without a sound. The moment it split, cracks started appearing on those two halves inch by inch before they turned into dust. As that finger fell, grief spread out and filled the hearts of all those watching. It made Yulin's eyes turn blank and vacant. His body trembled and he started crying tears of blood. Blood flowed out of the corners of his lips and a roar rang in his mind. That grief, that sorrow which seemed to have come from the depths of his heart seemed to have surpassed the limits of what his body could take. It was as if he was being crushed by the world, being rejected by the world itself. The moment Su Ming's finger fell, the faint voice he'd heard when he was in the land of the shamans spoke once again. This time, it did not stay in his heart but spread out. The aged voice spoke to everyone in the endless land. The place where I was born still did things according to the laws of the universe. When I was born, the berserkers had weakened. If the heavens are heartless, then we will all be separated. The earth was heartless, and it made my dark mountain die. When war begins, the moon will shatter into millions of pieces. The roads leading to our homes will become unfamiliar to us, and we will grieve. Su Ming lifted his head. His body was within the second shadow in the distance. As that shadow disappeared and he lifted his head, that one line of his destroyed the arrow as it slashed through the blue phantom shadow. The phantom shadow let out a piercing scream as if it was letting out a cry of despair before it died, as if it had just discovered something that threw it into disbelief. It struggled as if it wanted to retreat, and as it did so, a pleading look for mercy, panic, and absolute terror could be seen on its face. However, when Su Ming's finger slashed past the phantom shadow, those expressions disappeared and scattered into the wind along with its body. The phantom died, almost the moment Su Ming drew that line and in turn crushed the arrow and destroyed the phantom. One man walked swiftly past the three people kneeling in the ice house in the middle section of Northern Frontier Tribe. That person was short and looked like a child, but his face had a boorish quality to it. Perhaps it was due to his height, but his hair was so long that it dragged on the floor. God of Berserker's transformation. A serious look appeared on the person's face. "Bring me my bow," the short man stated languidly. At the same time, in the quiet later section of Northern Frontier Tribe, some of the oars in the ice houses suddenly started moving with a rumble. It was as if they were drawn out by Su Ming's line and moved like a gigantic wave that appeared on calm water. Yu Lin's face was pale where he stood on the battlefield. He staggered backwards and coughed out a mouthful of blood. His hand which held the bow trembled viciously. Blood lines also appeared in his eyes, yet the appearance of those blood lines could not give him the anger he needed to motivate him. They could only hold an endless amount of terror and shock. Almost at the instant he staggered backwards, he saw Su Ming lifting his head to look at him. That gaze radiated mercilessness, and a chill that could freeze bones. This was the final gaze and the final scene Yu Lin ever saw in his life. A green figure walked out from behind him and swept his cold hands across his neck gently, then those hands brought with them a human head gushing with blood. Second senior brother carried Yu Lin's head in his hand, and with a gentle expression, he looked towards Su Ming. As he did so, a smile curled up on his lips and admiration appeared on his face. "Let him sleep. He won't be harmed over here." While speaking, second senior brother averted his gaze from Hu Zi's body and turned to look at the deeper parts of Northern Frontier. "Youngest junior brother, have you given a name for that line of yours?" "Not yet," Su Ming replied softly. "Then call it Berserker Obliteration." Su Ming remained silent for a moment, then nodded his head. "I look forward to the day you complete Berserker Obliteration and play the full piece with the Shuan." As second senior brother spoke with Su Ming, the two of them turned into long arcs and charged into the deeper parts of Northern Frontier Tribe. No one dared to stop them as they passed through. Even the remaining berserkers scattered here and there retreated, allowing Su Ming and his second senior brother to be able to travel faster. After a moment, they arrived at the border between the front and middle sections of Northern Frontier Tribe. Over there, they saw the middle section lying just 10,000 feet away, and that section belonged to Phantom Deus Tribe. They also saw three middle-aged men looking at them coldly from one particular ice house within the tribe. They lifted the bows in their hands and blue aura surrounded them as phantom howls echoed in the air. Behind the three men was a short man who held a bow that was about half his size. That man stabbed that bow onto the ground and grabbed the bowstring. As he drew it out, thick black aura grew from the string, and in the blink of an eye, it turned into a savage, malicious phantom in midair, roaring at Su Ming. Before it finished roaring, a dozen people appeared from within the middle section of the tribe. All of them had different lengths of hair, and with their hands, they began drawing out the bows they held. A fierce killing intent gathered swiftly in the air. "Second senior brother, I have a second style after Berserker Obliteration, please help me name it as well." While speaking, Su Ming took a step forward. The moment he took that one step, his body appeared 500 feet away from where he was previously. His speed was so quick it was indescribable. The instant he did so, one of the 8 ice hoops on his legs exploded with a bang. His speed increased explosively. The explosion of the ice hoop made shock appear on second senior brother's face. Youngest junior brother was actually wearing those things. The breaking of the first ice hoop made Su Ming's entire body instantly feel as if a large weight had been lifted. The moment he felt as if his body had abruptly become lighter, he crossed another 1,000 feet in the time he had previously taken to cross 500 feet. When he crossed that distance, the others could no longer see Su Ming, they could only see an afterimage warping to the end of those 1,000 feet. By that time, most of the Phantom Deus tribe members in the middle section had only started drawing their bows. Su Ming's astonishing speed made Zhou Ji's short older brother's pupils shrink. Shock appeared on the faces of the three people before him. This speed, before the short man could finish uttering his words, which had come out of lips instinctively, banging sounds rang once again around Su Ming's body. Almost the second he crossed those 1,000 feet, another 2 ice hoops on his legs exploded. There were only 5 ice hoops left on his person. His speed became even quicker, and in an instant, he crossed a few hundred feet and rushed towards the short man with the big bow. The short man widened his eyes and let out a low roar. "Shoot him!" In the wake of that roar, arrows sliced through the air and charged towards Su Ming. But just as the arrows left the bowstrings and flew into the air at incredible speeds, banging sounds once again came from Su Ming's feet. 3 more ice hoops exploded simultaneously. At that moment, he only had 2 ice hoops on his person. Yet even so, his speed had reached a terrifying level. In just an instant, Su Ming crossed 5,000 feet as if he flew through time itself, as if he passed through space, and as if he had just turned those 5,000 feet into an inch. Right then, the world before Su Ming's eyes seemed to have slowed down. Those arrows also slowed down to a pace that was even slower than an arrow shot by a normal person. Those arrows may have seemed to have passed through Su Ming, but in truth, they only shot through his afterimage. Not only did the arrows slow down, even the actions of the 3 middle-aged men before him letting go of the bowstrings in their hands also slowed down. In fact, even though Su Ming was already standing before these 3 people, their eyes did not seem to have seen him. It was as if Su Ming was invisible and the 3 of them were still looking into the distance. Right until the moment Su Ming lifted his right hand and pushed forward. When he pressed forward, his palm seemed to have struck air, but the skin of the 3 people before him sank down, their hair flew up slowly, and their bodies started trembling. Su Ming did not stop. He hurled another punch towards the air. That one punch caused the 3 people to cough fresh blood and let go of the bowstrings, causing the 3 arrows to change direction and lose their accuracy. Finally, Su Ming lifted his right hand, unfurled his fist, then tapped at the air with one finger. When his finger landed in the air, the heads of the 3 middle-aged men who were gambling just now exploded. Only at the moment of their deaths did Su Ming's reflection appear in their eyes, and that was the end of their lives. So Uncle Master Bai's palm strike, punch, and tap can be done at extreme speeds, Su Ming understood then. At the instant those 3 people died and the world's speed returned to normal, a black arrow suddenly appeared right in Su Ming's line of vision. Then once it sent the 3 people's flesh and blood flying into the sky, it shot through and charged towards him. There were ferocious and malicious phantoms howling on the black arrow. Coming from behind that arrow was the short man's killing intent, and hidden underneath that killing intent was his shock and alarm. Still caught in his shock, the short man felt a faint gust of wind blowing towards him from the cold sky above him. Chapter 290. It's dark now. Where did the wind come from? The wind started from this place itself. Su Ming's expression was calm besides the murderous aura in his right eye. At the moment the black arrow and the ferocious phantom shadow on it closed in on him, the final 2 ice hoops on his body exploded. 6 of the 8 ice hoops had shattered while he was on the way there. Every single time one of them was destroyed, Su Ming's speed would exceed his previous states and would raise once again in an inconceivable fashion. At that moment, when the final 2 ice hoops broke in succession, in Su Ming's eyes, be it the black arrow or the phantom shadow formed by the black aura, or even the Phantom Deus tribe members that appeared around him in the middle section of Northern Frontier Tribe, all of these things seemed to have come to a standstill. The black arrow seemed to have frozen in the sky and looked as if it did not even move. The only thing that seemed to be moving in the entire world was Su Ming's body. He moved forward and walked past the black arrow, past the ferocious phantom shadow, and arrived before Zhou Ji's older brother. This was a powerful berserker with power equal to those in the bone sacrifice realm. Even if he was not in the later stage of the bone sacrifice realm, judging by how thick the black aura was on the arrow he shot, it could be determined that his power was around the peak of the initial stage of the bone sacrifice realm. If he wanted to, he could arrive at the middle stage of the bone sacrifice realm any time he wanted. However, this person was not the strongest person Su Ming had ever defeated. He walked past this person and the virescent light sword in his right hand glowed before it sliced through the short man's neck. When Su Ming delivered that slash and stood behind the short man, at that moment, it was as if the world returned to normal. It changed abruptly back from that frozen state, and a shrill cry came from behind Su Ming, followed by the sound of a corpse falling to the ground and an arrow shooting into the sky. Within the whistle of that arrow was also the wretched shriek of the malicious phantom who also died because its host passing away. There were many other sounds mixed within, and they all came from the Phantom Deus tribe members in the middle section of Northern Frontier Tribe. Those were the sounds of them drawing their bows and shooting their arrows. At that moment, those arrows let out whistling sounds as they sliced through the air and fell to the ground. Su Ming was so quick that he managed to kill 3 people in a go, followed by another kill, and all of this happened in the span of an arrow being shot. When the arrows flew into the sky, he took his first step, and they only fell to the ground when he had stopped. Su Ming's face was slightly pale, but his expression was calm, save the glint from the murderous aura in his right eye. He looked around his surroundings and at all the Phantom Deus tribe members who were looking at him with shock and horrified surprise on their faces. When these Phantom Deus tribe members looked at Su Ming, disbelief and shock could be seen in their eyes. They did not see just how Su Ming had managed to kill those 4 people. They only saw him taking one step 10,000 feet away. When that step landed, he was already standing at the spot he was now, and lying closest to his back were those 3 people whose bodies were completely mangled, and their arrows were broken while their phantoms destroyed. Then slightly further away was the brother of Zhou Zhe. That black arrow berserker seemed as if he could not even resist before his head flew into the air and his phantom shadow died with a wretched screech. Su Ming's speed had surpassed everyone's imagination, causing them to be unable to believe what they just saw. Only their hearts remained pounding increasingly faster against their chest, which then turned into nervousness and fear. At that moment, silence fell upon the area. 10,000 feet away, second senior brother also widened his eyes. He took a deep breath after a long while, and when he looked at Su Ming, his gaze was filled with praise and shock. He had watched Su Ming move during the entire process, but even so, when Su Ming killed the short man at the end, he too had lost sight of him for an instant. This could only mean that Su Ming's speed at that instant had surpassed second senior brother's senses. If his speed was quicker and he could disappear for a long time from a powerful warrior's sight, then he would also become a powerful warrior. He was a gust of wind. A gust of wind that people could only feel blowing against their faces but could not see. When Su Ming's gaze swept through all the Phantom Deus tribe members around him in the middle section of Northern Frontier Tribe, all the faces of those who had fallen into his line of vision were instantly drained of blood, and rumbling sounds echoed in their heads. It was as if Su Ming's gaze contained numerous sharp swords that could pierce through their eyes and crash into their souls, leaving behind a deep brand. That brand was a feeling of powerlessness that made them feel as if they could not resist, as if the person before them was someone they could not hope to win against. With this feeling in their hearts, under Su Ming's gaze, and as their hearts raced even more quickly in their chests, those whom had fallen into Su Ming's line of vision as he swept his gaze through the area instinctively knelt down before him. They placed the bows in their hands next to their legs, wrapped their arms around their chests, and lowered their heads. When Su Ming's gaze swept past all the people in the area, all of them, no matter the length of their hair or whether they were a berserker or a normal person, knelt down and worshipped him. The second style is like a moment that only lasts for an instant, and during that moment, all ghosts and phantoms are destroyed. It is a power that is incomparable. How about naming it Phantom Flash? Second senior brother asked gently as he walked towards Su Ming. Phantom Flash, all right. Su Ming nodded his head, his face growing somewhat pale. The speed just now was already his limit. When the final 2 ice hoops exploded, he sensed that the speed had slightly surpassed what his body could bear. If it was not because he had been training his physical body for the past few months, then it was highly likely that he would have been torn to shreds under that astonishing speed. However, youngest junior brother, that style may be stunning, but it's still lacking. Second senior brother walked towards Su Ming slowly, and when he was behind him, he cast a glance at the ground, specifically at the short man's corpse, who had his head separated from his body. It might not be accurate for me to say that it's lacking. After all, you're the one who created it, but I think, when you're traveling in that speed, your observational skills fall. As second senior brother spoke, a glint appeared in his eyes, and instantly, a large amount of grass appeared out of nowhere around the short man's corpse. You're recovering, I see. The instant second senior brother's words were said, the short man's head started melting and turned into an innumerable amount of black bugs that spread out on the ground. The corpse did the same thing and turned into numerous black bugs. As they filled the entire ground, these black bugs let out a piercing screech and flew into the sky simultaneously. Yet the moment they flew up, the grass on the ground also shot up and ensnared them. The black bugs moved about incessantly, trying to escape from the grass, but it was clear they would not succeed. Su Ming lifted his head and looked at the black bugs in the sky. His gaze turned cold. My creation is unlike Third's when he enters dream. It's also largely different from the pictures you draw. My creation is that of seeking death when walking the path of life, just like how day searches for night. While speaking, second senior brother lowered his head to look at his left hand before he slowly lifted it and seized the air in the direction of the bugs that were trying to escape from the grass in the sky. The moment he did so, the grass that had ensnared the bugs turned brown as if having lost all its life force, as if it was a flower in spring that rapidly withered away under autumn wind. Yet the moment it withered away, that loss of life seemed to spread and covered the black bugs. When second senior brother lowered his hand, those black bugs fell from the sky and crashed into a mangled heap of flesh on the ground. When all the bugs fell, they did not remain as the carcasses of those bugs but transformed back into the short man's corpse. When you use Phantom Flash next time, don't cast your attention on your surroundings. Focus on the enemy you want to kill and observe his life, see whether it is still there or whether it is hidden. If you're not certain, then remember one thing. Always treat it as if he is still alive and kill him again, maybe twice, or even more. As second senior brother spoke, he moved to the side of the mass of flesh, lifted his foot, and started stomping on it. His expression was still gentle, and it was a huge contrast to what he was doing at the moment. Now, he's truly dead. Absolutely, and without a doubt, dead. Second senior brother said softly, lifting his head with a smile towards Su Ming. His actions made the Phantom Deus tribe members who were gathered around them feel an endless chill creeping up their hearts. Right then, to them, this man who had been smiling all this while was even more terrifying than Su Ming. This terror did not come from his power but from his actions. Su Ming was silent for a moment, then nodded deeply. Let's go and see just how many people will come out to stop us in the later section of Northern Frontier Tribe. Second senior brother smiled and patted Su Ming's shoulder. There was still a look of praise in his eyes. Su Ming was just about to follow him, but the moment he lifted his foot, his body trembled, and he lifted his head to look towards his second senior brother standing by his side. He saw a hint of paleness appearing on his second senior brother's smiling face. Second senior brother, Su Ming opened his mouth, about to say something more. It's fine, I'm your senior brother, this is what I should do. Let's go. Second senior brother shook his head and smiled before he moved forward. Su Ming stared at his second senior brother blankly, and warm affection appeared in his eyes. Just now, when his second senior brother patted his shoulder, he clearly felt a surge of warmth traveling from second senior brother's hand into his body. That warmth circulated through him once and turned into an abundance of life force. This life force was like a powerful medicinal pill that almost entirely healed the injuries Su Ming's body had sustained due to that unbelievable speed. Yet it was clear that this was not an easy task for second senior brother to do either. The kindness of the sect was carved into Su Ming's heart. For all eternity, he would never forget the 9th summit. As the two of them moved forward, no one tried to stop them anymore. The Phantom Deus tribe members around them simply watched Su Ming and second senior brother walking further into the distance. Gradually, they arrived at the later section of Northern Frontier Tribe built on the snow plain. What was revealed before Su Ming and second senior brother were the quiet ice houses located at the very end of the tribe, along with the black-leaved tree at the edge of the snow plains, and the house underneath that tree. Phantom Deus tribe lives up to its name. Youngest junior brother. There are about 100 people living within the ice houses in this area, and there are about a dozen of them whose power is equivalent to those in the bone sacrifice realm. Second senior brother swept his gaze across those ice houses, then smiled at Su Ming before he lifted his head to look at the weather. Youngest junior brother. It's dark now. The moment those words left second senior brother's lips, his previously gentle demeanor changed so drastically it was as if heaven was overturned. Chapter 291. Second senior brother's secret. It's dark now. The moment those words came out of second senior brother's mouth, a freezing cold aura spread out from within his body. That cold aura was like the darkness in the sky, like the cold and merciless night. At that moment, it was as if second senior brother had turned into a completely different person. Although he was standing beside Su Ming could clearly feel that his second senior brother had become different. Yet he was not unfamiliar with this second senior brother because he had seen him before. Second senior brother's feet slowly rose into the air and he hovered several inches above the ground. His long hair fluttered slowly in the wind, and that aloof expression on his face made him look incredibly stern. At that moment, as the sky turned dark and night came, he turned into the darkness that would only appear at night, the one his day personality searched for. All that which entered Su Ming's line of vision was darkness appearing on the ground below where his second senior brother floated like a ghost. That darkness was not from snow but from the black grass that grew on it. The grass at night is black, did you know that? Second senior brother's voice echoed in the air. As his voice traveled forth, the black grass behind him rustled. In that silent night, those rustling sounds were like people talking about something in soft mumbles. The moment second senior brother approached the ice house closest to him, a sharp whistling sound came, and along with it came a black arrow. That arrow charged out of that ice house and towards second senior brother. A ferocious phantom shadow materialized on the arrow. It howled as if it wanted to tear apart second senior brother alive and devour his flesh. I cannot find the darkness during night, because I am night itself. Second senior brother's voice was cold. As he spoke, he turned towards the arrow and did not even bother dodging it. He simply let the arrow pierce his body, but as if his body had turned into a mere illusion, that arrow passed through him before it fell onto the black grass on the ground, humming as it did so. Second senior brother's footsteps did not show any signs of stopping. He continued moving forward, and what happened to him made Su Ming's pupils shrink. Su Ming saw the phantom shadow that was formed by the black aura on the arrow around second senior brother's body as if it had fused with him, and it was letting out shrill cries. That cry shook the skies, and it was so shrill it sounded as if the phantom shadow was going through an unbearable pain. Yet in Su Ming's eyes, he could only see the phantom shadow revolving around second senior brother and gradually becoming smaller, looking as if it could disappear at any time. Great Phantom Devourer Art. Why do you know Phantom Deus tribe's secret art? A voice filled with shock came from within the ice house the arrow had came from. At the same time, a person walked out from it. It was a man dressed in a long white robe. His eyes sparkled, but they were currently shining with surprise and shock. The moment the man walked out, sharp whistling sounds abruptly tore through the air, and more than a dozen sharp arrows shot out from the ice houses in the later section of Northern Frontier Tribe. Most of these arrows were blue, but there were some which were black. There was even one of them whose black aura was so thick that the phantom shadow forming above the arrow was about 1,000 feet tall under the dark sky. That sight was like phantoms rushing out together and charging towards second senior brother in the form of arrows as they roared. Su Ming's expression changed. Without any hesitation, he took a step forward. Green light shone by his side and the small virescent sword sliced through the air towards the sky. Yet at that moment, second senior brother stopped moving and stretched out his arms. He then lifted his right and seized the air in the direction of the sky. With that one move, Su Ming was thrown into disbelief. In his second senior brother's hands, a large bow appeared. That bow was entirely black. The body of the bow was made of black wood, and the bowstring was made of black grass. Second senior brother held it in his hand and drew the bow. I don't only know Phantom Devourer, I also know your phantom bow art. As second senior brother's aloof voice echoed in the air, he drew the bow fully. There was no arrow in his hand, but as he released the bowstring, Su Ming sucked in a deep breath. With his own eyes, he saw his second senior brother's body turning into a wisp of black ore the moment the bowstring was released. Just like an arrow that left the bowstring, it charged towards the arrows raining down from the sky. It was difficult to describe this scene. In Su Ming's eyes, it was as if his second senior brother lost his physical body and turned into an arrow. Yet this arrow was shot out the moment he released the bowstring. All of this happened in an instant. Su Ming saw his second senior brother turning into a black arrow, and in the black light of the arrow, he even saw a lock of hair. At that moment, Su Ming suddenly gained a deeper understanding towards his second senior brother's creation. He wandered about in between life and death, like day searching for the darkness at night, but this did not mean that he was only searching for darkness when it was day. This was him searching for darkness at night. Because he existed within night itself, that was why even if he found it, he would still forever be unable to see it. Su Ming looked at the arrow which was his second senior brother. The black aura on that arrow was very thick, and he could even see the faint phantom shadow gathering on it. And that phantom shadow's appearance was exactly like his second senior brother's face. Su Ming's heart trembled. He understood then. Understood why his second senior brother's creation was life and death, why his second senior brother liked flowers, why his second senior brother loved having sunlight fall on the side of his face. And also why his second senior brother was always searching during night. Phantom shadow. He actually turned into a phantom shadow. Who is he? This can't be possible. There is no host, only the phantom shadow. This is, could the host be him? The Phantom Deist tribe members' faces were filled with disbelief. Some of them even looked towards Su Ming. At that moment, the arrow which was the transformed second senior brother in the sky and his phantom shadow crashed into the dozen arrows shot by the Phantom Deist tribe. A booming sound that shook the sky and earth echoed far through the air. As that sound spread at a maddening pace, all the arrows flying towards second senior brother shattered and turned into millions of shards that tumbled backwards. The many malicious phantoms on the arrows and that phantom that was 1,000 feet tall and surrounded by black aura let out terrified, shrill shrieks. Second senior brother's body was like a vacuum that sucked in everything. All the malicious phantoms were pulled towards him and revolved around him, causing second senior brother to look blurry as he stared at the ground underneath him coldly. The vague shape of a horn could be seen faintly on second senior brother's head. The color of that horn was black, but with a hint of green. The malicious phantoms on his body quickly shrank, shrieking. It was as if they were all devoured by this second senior brother that only appeared during night. Phantom King. He's the Phantom King. This is impossible, it's impossible. He doesn't have a host. How is he still alive? Uproars reverberated through the surroundings, and the Phantom Deist tribe members present instinctively retreated. Their gazes when they looked at second senior brother in the sky were filled with terror and disbelief. Behind them, balls of illusionary shadows appeared against their wills. These illusionary shadows were their phantoms. When these phantoms appeared, they looked towards second senior brother in the sky and their faces were also filled with the same horrified surprise, but there was still a difference. Within that horrified surprise was also a hint of zealous respect. Su Ming looked at his second senior brother's back and a complicated look appeared on his face. He understood then why Hu Zi chose to enter his dreams so many times here. It was because this was a rare chance. They had their master protecting them in the dark, and that was why he could enter his dream without worry. It was just like the initial time he entered his dream when he was by Su Ming's side. It was because he knew that Su Ming was by his side. Even if Su Ming had just joined the 9th Summit, he could still tell that Hu Zi had truly regarded him as his junior brother. A junior brother that could be protected and would offer his own protection at the same time. It was just like how second senior brother acted now. This was clearly second senior brother's secret, yet he did not choose to hide anything before Su Ming. He simply stood there and revealed his deepest secret. Because second senior brother knew that his junior brother was there. Because he knew that his master was there. Because he knew that even if he showed all of this and something happened to him, he would still be safe. Because there were people who would protect him here, and several years later, perhaps another person he wanted to protect with his life would appear again. The rules of the 9th Summit aren't made for killing but for protecting each other, Su Ming mumbled. He understood. He looked at his second senior brother's back and the complicated look in his eyes vanished, replaced by steadfast resolution. This was not the first time that a determined gaze had appeared in Su Ming's eyes, and this gaze did not just appear because his sense of belonging to the ninth summit had been wavering previously. This time, the steadfast resolution that appeared within his eyes was born of a desire to protect his home and his family. This protective desire reminded Su Ming of Dark Mountain. Dark Mountain was what he wanted to protect, but he did not succeed in the end. Right then, the ninth summit gave him the desire to protect something once again. He did not know whether he would succeed, but he knew that this was his home, and over here, he had a family. Even if the family members within this home were different from others, even if one of the family members, his second senior brother, was not human. He was a phantom, one that had somehow escaped fate. He was a phantom that longed for light even though he was of darkness. He loved plants because the life force within those flowers was similar to his. His creation was that of life and death, because he did not walk from life to death, but from death to life. Su Ming understood now. At the moment he gained the epiphany, suddenly, a cold harumph came from the house underneath that lonely big tree at the edge of the snow plains of Phantom Deus tribe. When the harumph sounded, Su Ming's body trembled and his divine general armor materialized on his body while Han Mountain Bell rang to resist it. Yet no matter what, blood still trickled down from his mouth. There was a cold chill seeping out of that voice, and once it appeared, all the tribe members of Phantom Deus tribe shuddered and knelt in the direction of that house. Second senior brother's body trembled in midair when that cold harumph sounded. Rumbling sounds came from nearby, and before second senior brother, a gigantic phantom claw shot out from the dark sky, moving to catch him. When that gigantic phantom claw appeared, a cold and old voice followed suit. "Are you done fooling around?" Once that voice spoke, suddenly, another voice answered back with the exact same words, "Are you done fooling around?" However, this voice was not cold. Instead, it held a hint of playfulness. Chapter 292, I'm not Tian Xie. The first voice came from within the house under the big tree at the edge of the snow plains and from the phantom claw that was extending from the sky. The second voice came from Tian Xie. "You're exactly right. Bloody hell, are you brats done fooling around?" Tian Xie was wearing a long white robe and a black hood covering his head which only revealed his eyes and mouth, making him look very odd. When his words were said, not only did it not make the phantom claw from the sky that was working on catching second senior brother stop, it made him move even faster. In an instant, it closed on second senior brother. Yet the moment it got closer, second senior brother did not move. A black bundle of smoke suddenly appeared out of nowhere before him. That black smoke's presence seemed similar to second senior brother's, but in truth, it was completely different. As the black smoke gathered together, a man walked out from within it. That man's skin was completely black, and he was 20 feet tall. Like a giant, he stood before second senior brother, and with a ferocious sneer on his lips, he hurled a punch towards the incoming phantom claw. That person was one of the 300 slaves that eldest senior brother owned. He was constantly lusting for blood and held a crazed desire for slaughter. When he attacked, his fist immediately crashed against the phantom claw. A shocking boom reverberated in the air, and the phantom claw was forced back several dozens of feet, but the man also trembled and coughed out a mouthful of blood. Yet even though he had just vomited blood, he was not weakened. Instead, he became even more excited. He lifted his head and roared before charging towards that phantom claw. As he moved forward, that person lifted his right hand and slammed it against his chest. 9 Li Tribe 1 Relic, Forbidden Curse, Blood Swamp. When he slammed his palm against his chest, his body was bizarrely torn apart. His arms, legs, head, and body were all instantly split up from each other and turned into wisps of black smoke. As those wisps moved forward, they merged together and turned into a black vortex. Low growls could be heard coming from within it. That sound seemed to have come from the depths of hell itself and was filled with a desire to slaughter the living and exuded an air of madness. When it got close to the phantom claw, a blood-red hand stretched out from within the depths of the vortex. That hand had no skin, only flesh and bone, and there were numerous runic symbols marking its flesh. That hand seized the phantom claw and pulled. The two different hands clashed together in midair and both used the strongest power they could muster against each other. With a loud boom in the sky, a shrill cry echoed in the air, and the phantom claw was ripped apart. The ripped portion of the claw was then dragged into the vortex. At the same time, the vortex trembled and chewing sounds could be heard from within. Soon, the vortex dissolved into black smoke once again, and when they merged together, they turned into the man once more. The man coughed out a huge mouthful of blood, then laughed maniacally towards the sky as he wiped off the blood from the corners of his lips and smeared it on his chest. The phantom arm that had lost its hand swiftly vanished into the dark sky. At the same time, an angry voice came from the ice house located at the edge of the snow plains. Tian Xiezi, what is the meaning of this? The hooded Tian Xiezi lifted his head and cast a glance at Su Ming's second senior brother. Second, get down here. Second senior brother's expression was calm and he slowly descended onto the ground to stand beside Su Ming. Once he did so, he bowed respectfully towards Tian Xiezi. And you, the eldest told you to come, right? Get down here. The dark-skinned man glared at Tian Xiezi and looked as if he was just about to go against his words when he seemed to remember something. That rebelliousness instantly turned into obedience and he moved to stand beside Tian Xiezi. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before said softly, Master. Shut up. Tian Xiezi glared at Su Ming and pointed at him, at his second senior brother, then at the dark-skinned man as well. Anger appeared on his face, and it did not seem fake. Tian Xiezi was truly and absolutely livid. Look at what you've done. Have you grown a pair now, huh? Are you done fooling around? Just as Tian Xiezi was giving his disciples a piece of his mind, that old voice once again came from the house at the edge of the snow plains. Tian Xiezi, you must be held accountable for what happened to Phantom Deus tribe this time. Tian Xiezi did not even glance back to acknowledge the voice. He simply continued glaring at Su Ming and the others. That enraged expression of his made Su Ming instinctively look at second senior brother by his side. Second senior brother lowered his head and did not speak. What are you doing? Tell me, exactly what are you doing? You ran to other people's tribe and started fighting and killing them, is it fun? Come on, tell me. Are you done fooling around? Bloody hell, I've been following you brats all the way, and I can't watch this anymore. Tian Xiezi roared loudly. Are you people even stirring up trouble? Are you even killing? Is this what you call breaking into someone else's tribe? Do people even break into other tribes like this? There's not even an ounce of grandness in what you just did. You piss me off. Watch, I'll teach you right now exactly what it means to break into a tribe and what it means to be arrogant. Tian Xiezi's anger did not fade, but instead, his voice grew louder as he continued speaking, and he looked absolutely disappointed that they did not live up to his expectations. The only thing missing was him pounding his chest in exasperation. A voice burning with anger almost at the same intensity as Tian Xiezi's rage shot out from within the ice house at the edge of the snow plains. Tian Xiezi. What did you just call me? I'm definitely not that brilliant, handsome, extraordinary, powerful, strapping, and what else is there? Wise, valiant and all the other things you can think of. Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi immediately turned his head around and looked at the house in the distance before he patted his chest with a proud look on his face. Just how in the world could you mistake me for Tian Xiezi? It's a pity, but I'm not him. Tian Xiezi blinked and quickly retorted. That's enough, Tian Xiezi. You and your disciples trespassed into my tribe. Before that old voice even finished speaking, a piercing shout that was much louder than it spilled out from Tian Xiezi's mouth. I'm not Tian Xiezi. I'm really not Tian Xiezi. Tian Xiezi shouted out with a nervous expression on his face before taking a step forward and grabbing one of the Phantom Deus tribe members who was kneeling down and worshipping in the direction of the house. He lifted him up as if he was lifting up a small creature, and with bloodshot eyes, he stared fixedly at the person who was so scared he was stunned. Tell me, am I Tian Xiezi? That Phantom Deus tribe member shook his head rapidly, his body trembled. A smile instantly appeared on Tian Xiezi's face and he tossed the Phantom Deus tribe member to the side. Tian Xiezi, you've gone overboard. A furious howl came from within the house, and the big tree beside the house suddenly started twisting and moving bizarrely. The black leaves on its branches fell off, and as they floated down, they turned into 18 phantom shadows that looked like young boys. With savage looks on their faces, those boys opened their mouths so wide they looked as if they were about to split their heads open and turned into thick black smoke that charged towards Tian Shiezi. Tian Shiezi widened his eyes, rage burning within them. I'm not Tian Shiezi, damn it. I'm not Tian Shiezi. As he spoke, he took a step forward and was just about to rush towards the 18 phantoms when he suddenly stopped, turned his head back, and glared at Su Ming and the others. What are you doing? We're going together. Are you actually thinking of letting me attack alone? Second senior brother's eyes sparkled and he was the first to rush out. In the blink of an eye, he passed Tian Shiezi. A dark smile appeared on his lips and an aloof look settled in his eyes. The second person to rush out was the dark-skinned man. With a bloodthirsty look on his face, the man let out bizarre cries and charged forward like a gust of black wind. Su Ming may have been the last to move, but with his speed, he only needed one step before he arrived in front of the others. With the divine general armor covering his body, the chimes from Han Mountain Bell, and his origin lightning, the dark sky started rumbling thunderously. His origin vessel, the strange fragment that was formed within Su Ming's body after he refined lightning in the past, was letting out lightning sparks that no one could see. They spread all over Su Ming's body, causing rumbling bolts of lightning to shoot out in all directions. Tian Shiezi grinned, then lifted his right hand and waved it before him. Instantly, a layer of fog appeared before him. That fog rolled about as if it was a gigantic wave and rushed forward. All the ice houses in its path exploded, and the people who did not manage to evade were swept into the white fog, screaming in terror. As the white fog moved forward, it turned into a gigantic ball about hundreds of feet in size. It charged towards that house by the edge of the snow plains with loud booming sounds. The instant that gigantic ball of fog got close to the house, an old man with white hair walked out from within and pressed his hand against the ball of fog. Right then, Tian Shiezi's body suddenly vanished. When he reappeared, he was within that fog, and he hurled a punch towards that old man. I'm not Tian Shiezi. One punch. I'm really not Tian Shiezi. Another punch. Damn you, even if I die, I won't admit it. And another one. Booming sounds reverberated in the air. The white-haired old man resisted the blows with an angry face, but he was repeatedly forced back until eventually, Tian Shiezi hurled out a punch that caused that house to burst into pieces. The white-haired old man was pushed to the cliff of the snow plains under Tian Shiezi's relentless punches. Then with a low growl and one final punch, the old man was sent flying off the snow plains. Third, fourth, do you see it now? If you kill someone but don't destroy their houses, can you still call it breaking into a tribe? What you did was fooling around. This is the real deal. A proud look appeared on Tian Shiezi's face and he turned his head back to look at Su Ming and the others, who were fighting against the 18 phantom shadows. Tian Shiezi, you lunatic. The white-haired old man was floating in the air beyond the snow plains, and he was in a sorry state. His clothes were torn, his hair was messy, and blood was running down his mouth. A vicious look appeared on his face. Tian Shiezi was stunned for a moment when he heard the old man's words before his expression instantly changed to one of agitation. His eyes even became bloodshot. Lunatic. I'm not a lunatic. I'm not. Tian Shiezi took one step forward and started shouting at the old man, I'm really not a lunatic. I'm not crazy. There was a hurt look on his face, along with agitation, and even terror, which seemed to have come from having someone discover his secret. I'm not a lunatic. I'm already cured. I'm really not crazy. As if he had sunk into hysteria, Tian Shiezi rushed towards the old man in one step. By the looks of it, he wanted to catch that old man to prove something. The old man's eyes widened, and terror appeared within them. Su Ming stood in the distance laughing wryly, and he could only laugh wryly. Chapter 293, Compromise. As Su Ming continued laughing wryly, in the distance, Tian Shiezi took one step, and a distorted wave of ripples appeared in the air. Just like when Su Ming used that extreme speed, he disappeared in a flash. When he reappeared, he was already standing before the white-haired old man. The old man's pupils shrank and he was about to retreat when Tian Shiazi's thin left hand grabbed his shirt. I'm not a lunatic. I'm really not. I'm cured. I'm completely cured. Why do you say I'm crazy? With bloodshot eyes, Tian Shiazi started roaring at the white-haired old man. No matter who it was that saw his expression then could tell that he was nervous and frightened, as if his secret was just discovered and he was trying hard to explain himself to hide something. This scene fell into the eyes of Phantom Deist tribe members, and all their gazes when they looked at Tian Shiazi were filled with deep terror. The white-haired old man was shaken to the core. This was not the first time he had met Tian Shiazi, and he also knew some of the rumors regarding the man. He originally didn't pay too much heart to it, yet when he was seized by Tian Shiazi at that moment, he suddenly discovered that this Tian Shiazi instilled a terror within him that made even his heart tremble in fear. Damn it, I already told you I'm not crazy. You don't believe me, you don't. As Tian Shiazi shouted, some of his spit flew out of his mouth. The white-haired old man who was really close to him wanted to struggle and get away, but clearly, it was not possible. Tian Shiazi, you lunatic. What are you doing? This is Phantom Deist tribe. This is the great tribe of Freezing Sky's northern frontier tribe. I'm Phantom Deist chief of the hunters. If you dare hurt me, I'll make sure your entire ninth summit dies with me. The white-haired old man growled as he struggled. His face was filled with rage, but underneath that rage was well-hidden terror. Why you? Tian Shiazi was so agitated that tears started welling up in his eyes, looking as if they were about to fall at any moment, and then, he started shouting madly. Why do you insist that I'm a lunatic? I'm not a lunatic. I'm really cured now. If you don't believe me, then look at this. It was as if Tian Shiazi remembered something, and with one hand still holding onto the white-haired old man, he stuck his right hand into his bosom and brought out a small wooden slip. Once he brought it out, Tian Shiazi threw it behind him, and that wooden slip turned into a dim ray of light that flew towards Su Ming, who was standing not too far away. Fourth, read the words on the slip for me. Let them hear it. A smug expression appeared on Tian Shiazi's face, but he still continued glaring at the white-haired old man before him. Su Ming was momentarily stunned, but still caught the wooden slip. When he lowered his head to look at it, his expression immediately turned odd. Read it. Tian Shiazi yelled at him, displeased. Su Ming hesitated for a moment before he spoke in a voice that echoed in the area. Western Region Tribe of the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky admits that Tian Shiazi is not a lunatic and that he has been cured. Su Ming blinked, then laughed wryly as he lifted his head to look at Tian Shiazi. Tian Shiazi's face was filled with smug pride. He glared at the white-haired old man, then with an arrogant demeanor yelled at him, so. That's the proof. Did you see the proof Western Freezing Sky gave me? Fourth, flip it over. There's still some at the back. Continue reading. Su Ming flipped the wooden slip over. When he saw the words written on the back, he laughed wryly once again and shook his head before his voice echoed through the air once again. Eastern District Tribe of the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky admits that Tian Shiazi is not a lunatic and that he has been cured. The barren Southern Tribe of the Great Tribe of Freezing Sky admits that Tian Shiazi is not a lunatic and that he has been cured. The Great Tribe of Freezing Sky admits that Tian Shiazi is absolutely not a lunatic. When Su Ming finished reading all the words, the smug expression on Tian Shiazi's face became even more prominent. He grabbed the stunned white-haired old man and yelled at him, "Did you hear that? I'm not crazy, I'm already cured. That's my proof. If you don't believe me, I have more." This time, Tian Shiazi brought out a large amount of wooden slips from his bosom and threw them all to Su Ming. Silver Grass Meadow Tribe admits that Sir Tian Shiazi is not a lunatic. Promised Lattice Tribe admits that Sir Tian Shiazi has been cured. Sky Mist City admits that Tian Shiazi is no longer a lunatic. He is normal. The Great Tribe of Western Sea admits that Tian Shiazi is not crazy. As Su Ming continued reading the words out, he was shocked. All the handwritings on the wooden slips were different, and it was clear that they were from different people. It was as if the wooden slips were telling the truth and they all came from different tribes. Then Tian Shiazi. Su Ming sucked in a deep breath. He just saw Sky Mist City and the Great Tribe of Western Sea. As he continued reading the words, not only was he shocked, all the people around the area who heard it were also stunned. They all looked towards the smug-looking Tian Shiezi floating in midair. I said it before, I'm not a lunatic. Now you believe me, right? Tian Shiezi had a deeply wounded look on his face. Even if he was still wearing the hood, all of them could still see it through his words, and from his eyes and his mouth, which were not covered by the hood. The white-haired old man, who was captured by Tian Shiezi, had his eyes as wide as saucers and found himself completely speechless. He no longer dared say anything, because he was already very certain that Tian Shiezi was absolutely and without a doubt a lunatic. If he insisted on his words, then there was a high possibility that he would make him angry. There was no predicting what a lunatic would do. He's crazy, he's a lunatic. If those wooden slips are real, he's still a lunatic. A normal person wouldn't go to so many places just to get proof that he isn't crazy. If those are fake, then he's definitely a lunatic. The white-haired old man, Phantom Deus tribe's chief of the hunters, kept his lips sealed tight. Why aren't you speaking? You're looking down on me. Tian Shiezi glared at him, and the moment those words came out, even Su Ming began to pity that white-haired old man. How dare you look down on me, you, why are you looking down on me? You still think I'm crazy, right? Tian Shiezi flew into a rage, and as he grew even more agitated, a glow appeared in his eyes, one that said he wanted to kill the man to silence him. Perhaps the others could not tell the meaning behind that glow, but the white-haired old man who was captured in his hands could see it clearly. You're horrible. I respected you and brought out all my proof for you, and yet you still think I'm a lunatic. With his face burning with anger, Tian Shiezi lifted his right hand. Judging by the looks of it, it seemed like he wanted to strangle the white-haired old man to death. The old man's eyes grew even wider, and he began struggling desperately. Yet he had already noticed something before this happened. All the circulation of power within his body was cut off when Tian Shiezi grabbed his throat. It was as if he had lost his power and could not summon even the tiniest bit of it. As Tian Shiezi lifted his right hand, a terror of death filled the white-haired old man's heart and mind, making fear appear on his face. He opened his mouth, looking as if he wanted to say something, but Tian Shiezi did not give him the chance. He seized his throat and started squeezing with both hands. The white-haired old man's face instantly turned red. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He knew that if the white-haired old man died, then this would instantly turn into a big problem, but he was not afraid. Killing intent appeared in his eyes instead. The moment the white-haired old man died in his master's hands, Su Ming would immediately act. Before anyone could strike back, he would kill them all first. Nearby, second senior brother and the dark-skinned man had already crushed the 18 young phantom shadows. Quite a number of them were even swallowed by second senior brother. Right then, he was still in his night appearance. His entire body gave off a chilling aura and his expression was aloof, but within his aloof gaze, there was killing intent. However, just as the white-haired old man was about to be strangled to death by Tian Shiezi and the Phantom Deus tribe members on the ground began to show expressions of madness driven by fear and were about to throw everything to the wind and fight back. An old voice spoke in a resigned voice, "You're not a lunatic, you're already cured. I, Mo Shan, can be your witness." Once that voice spoke and spread through the land, the white-haired old man in Tian Shiezi's hands suddenly shuddered and immediately turned into countless black bugs as if he had just shattered into them. Those bugs quickly fell back and flew several thousands of feet away while crammed closely together before they turned back into the white-haired old man. There was still terror lingering on his face from having experienced the fear of having narrowly escaped death and knelt in the air. "Greetings, Elder. Thank you for saving my life." Ripples appeared in the spot where the white-haired old man was kneeling, and an old man dressed in a black robe gradually walked out. That old man ignored the Phantom Deus chief of the hunters and looked towards Tian Shiezi. Tian Shiezi, his words had just left his mouth when Tian Shiezi let out a cold harumph. He too did not look at Phantom Deus chief of the hunters. He glared at the black-robed old man instead. "I'm not Tian Shiezi." The moment Phantom Deus's elder appeared, Su Ming trembled. He felt a faint pressure coming from the old man, and it made his entire body's chi freeze. A grim expression appeared on his face, Yet when he heard his master's words, that pressure vanished in an instant. Su Ming smiled. He had a feeling that if Phantom Deus Elder continued speaking, he would perhaps be brought back to the previous topic as his master continued talking in circles. Then I must have mistaken you for someone else. How should I address you? The black-robed Phantom Deus Elder smiled softly. There was not a hint of emotion on his face when he spoke slowly and looked at Tian Xiezi. I'm Tian Xiezi. Blood hell, don't you recognize me? I even held you in my arms when you were young. How could you not recognize me? How could you ask me who I am? Tian Xiezi glared at him with a face burning with anger. A resigned look appeared on the face of the Phantom Deus Elder before he shook his head and rapped his fist in his palm towards Tian Xiezi. Uncle Master, please stop joking around. I only learned of what had happened just now. It's my tribe member's fault. I already brought that accursed spawn here, he said with a wry smile and waved his right arm. Immediately, a person staggered out from the air beside him, and with a thud, he was forced to kneel in the air. It was man at the prime of his life. He was half naked, and his hair encircled his neck several times. There was anger and great unwillingness on his face, along with terror. Chapter 294, Phantom Equal. Zhou Zhe was mixing around with some questionable company and was used by others, but since he was the person who did it, he has to be responsible for his actions. Henceforth, Zhou Zhe is no longer a member of Phantom Deus tribe. Whether he lives or dies will be decided by you, Uncle Master. Phantom Deus Elder stated calmly. Once he finished speaking, he cast a glance at Zhou Zhe, and a chilling glint appeared in his eyes. With one wave of his arm, Zhou Zhe was instantly swept away by wind and blown towards Su Ming and the others. When he crashed onto the ground before them, the dark-skinned man laughed viciously and lifted him up. A pleased look appeared on Tian Xiezi's face and he stroked his beard before letting out a fake cough. Eldest disciple nephew, look. Your uncle master and junior brothers didn't manage to control ourselves and destroyed a lot of your houses. It's fine. Those are physical objects and can be rebuilt. I was just thinking that these houses looked rather old lately. I'd have to thank you for clearing them out for me, Uncle Master. Mo Shan continued smiling and not much change could be seen from his expression. As that's so, then I don't have to worry about it anymore. But eldest disciple nephew, your junior brothers injured quite a number of people and even killed some of them, Tian Xiezi put on a troubled face. It's fine. That just means their power was not great enough. It has nothing to do with others. Even if they didn't die today, once we fought against the shamans, they would have still died there. They can consider this a lesson. Phantom Deus Elder's face continued looking as passive as ever as he spoke with a smile. It was as if anger could never be found on him. Yet no matter how well this sort of person presented himself, he could still not hide the sinister nature in himself. Su Ming stared at Phantom Deus Elder, standing not too far away. He knew clearly that with this person's power, he must have known when he and his second senior brother had come to this place. He must also have known who they were looking for. Yet at that time, he pretended not to have known. He had even simply allowed his tribe members to attack, and was only forced to come forth when Su Ming and the others walked up to this place and Tian Xiezi appeared. He even let them have Zhou Zhe. All of this was clearly because he was incredibly wary of Master. Perhaps it could even be said that this wariness manifested in the form of hesitation and observation, yet now, when this person appeared before them, judging by his current attitude, it was clear that he had made his decision. Uncle Master, I have something to give you. Consider this Phantom Deus tribe's apology for this matter. Phantom Deus Elder smiled when he spoke and brought out an item from his bosom. That thing was a wooden slip, and as he held it in his hand, he drew a few lines on it with his right hand to write a few words. Once he did so, he held it out respectfully to Tian Xiezi. When Tian Xiezi took it and lowered his head to look at it, he started grinning from ear to ear. Not bad at all. Next time, if anyone says I'm a lunatic again, I'll have one more proof I can show them. Mo Shan smiled and wrapped his fist in his palm to salute Tian Xiezi. I still have some matters to deal with in the tribe, so I won't be able to send you off, Uncle Master. If you have the time, feel free to come to my tribe and be our guest. Right up till the end, He did not spare even a single glance to Su Ming or the others, neither did he mention them at all in his words. It was as if Su Ming and the others did not exist in his eyes, or perhaps more accurately speaking, they did not have the right for him to take note of them. The only person that deserved his attention here was Tian Xiezi. "You're far too courteous. It's fine, you can go back now. I'll also be leaving." Tian Xiezi quickly and carefully put away the wooden slip before he patted his chest, looking completely contented. He was just about to turn around and walk towards Su Ming and the others to leave when a glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He took a step forward. "Master, I have something to say." Fourth, what is it?" Tian Xiezi looked towards Su Ming. Phantom Deus Elder continued smiling and still continued ignoring all the people around him. Even if Su Ming had just spoken, he still did not look at him and only continued looking at Tian Xiezi. "When I was fighting just now, I lost a bag. There was about 500 golden stone coins in there. I also had some enchanted vessels stored inside. At that time, I saw a Phantom Deus tribe member taking it away. Could you please get it back for me?" The moment Su Ming's words were voiced, before Tian Xiezi even spoke, Phantom Deus Elder swiftly turned his gaze towards Su Ming. This was the first time he looked at them properly. The smile on his face vanished for an instant, but it soon returned. Yet the freezing glare that appeared in his eyes for that one instant could be clearly felt by Su Ming, who had been watching his expression all this while. Something like this happened. You lost 500-something golden stone coins. That's a lot. Tian Xiezi widened his eyes. He turned his head around to look at Phantom Deus Elder and a stern look appeared on his face. "Eldest disciple nephew, that's your fault, isn't it? Come on now, hurry up and bring back that bag my disciple lost." Phantom Deus Elder fell silent for a moment, then quickly brought out a bag from his bosom and took out 600 golden stone coins from within. Those stone coins might not be as striking as the one Tian Lan Meng had given Su Ming, but they were about the same, and the large amount of those coins along with their value was something Su Ming had never seen before. "There's no need for that. There are 600 golden stone coins here. Junior brother, will you accept it?" A smile appeared on Phantom Deus Elder when he looked at Su Ming. "The stone coins are good, but this entire area is under Northern Frontier's jurisdiction. We're now almost to Sky Mist Shaman Hunt now, so it's only natural that we will go out shopping. If anything happens to us," the one who spoke was not Su Ming, but his second senior brother standing nearby. His voice was no longer cold and aloof, but gentle like spring wind. The moment he uttered his words, Su Ming immediately turned to look at his second senior brother. He saw that the aloof look on second senior brother's face was gone and he had returned to the gentle man who loved having sunshine on his body while he positioned himself so that the side of his face was turned towards it. With a gentle smile on his lips, he nodded to Su Ming. That handsome face, the brilliant smile, and the gentle demeanor made it hard for Su Ming to associate his second senior brother to how he was just moments ago, and also made it difficult for him to truly believe that this second senior brother of his had truly come back. The instant he spoke, Phantom Deus Elder cast his gaze towards second senior brother. There was a brief moment where his expression turned dark before he spoke languidly. "That's easy. If anything happens to any of you outside Freezing Sky Clan before Sky Mist Shaman Hunt, Phantom Deus tribe will be held accountable for it." "As that's so, now I have the courage to say it. Master, in truth, I also lost some stone coins," second senior brother smiled gently. You lost it too? Bloody hell, why do you people bring all your money with you when you come out to fight? That's good. That's very good. Second, make sure you write that down under 9th Summit's rules as well." Tian Xiezi nodded his head in a very satisfied manner. Second senior brother looked quite abashed as he turned towards Phantom Deus Elder, whose face had turned completely dark. "About that, I didn't lose too many things. It's also 500 golden stone coins, and a phantom fork, and 10 other enchanted vessels, and also 100-something medicinal liquid used to heal injuries. It's not much, it's really not much. I won't bother about the other items, I'm not that nitpicky, I can give them up." "Fourth, what else did you lose?" Second senior brother smiled and asked softly as he looked at Su Ming. Mo Shan's face grew increasingly darker. Su Ming had originally thought he was asking for a lot, but once he heard his second senior brother speak, only then did he know exactly what it meant by demanding an insane amount of things. I remember I lost around 100 ice rocks, and also merging bone grass, 3 scented branches, dust orchid leaves. Su Ming mentioned dozens of herbs of the top of his head. And also 7 bones from beasts equivalent to that of the awakening realm, and 8 puppet bodies with power equal to that of the awakening realm, and, Su Ming continued speaking until he did not know what else he wanted. Phantom Deus Elder's face was so dark that it had practically turned murderous by then. He glared at Su Ming and the others coldly. The other Phantom Deus tribe members were also seething in rage. Ahem, fourth, your memory is really horrid. I remember you had a phantom fork in your bag as well. Second senior brother let out a few fake coughs by his side. That's right, I just remembered. I also lost a phantom fork. Su Ming blinked and quickly spoke. The Phantom Deus Elder became so angry he started laughing, but once he took a few deep breaths, he closed his eyes. Once he reopened them, his eyes had already calmed down and he nodded his head with a smile. But I'm curious, how did you manage to store those 8 puppets in your bag? And how exactly did you have our tribe's unique treasure, the Phantom Fork, in your bag as well? But since you lost them in Phantom Deus tribe, then we will return it to you. The moment Phantom Deus Elder finished speaking, he suddenly lifted his head and looked into the distance. From the distance, a man holding a big axe could be seen running rapidly towards them. As he ran, he started shouting at the top of his lungs. Wait, I also lost some things. Second senior brother smiled. The grass in his palm shattered and turned into dust. There was in no way he would forget to tell his own junior brothers in the same sect when there were good things to get. In Huzi's case, he woke him up and told him. I lost a pot of wine. That's all I lost, nothing else. Give me back my wine. Huzi panted harshly as he ran to stand beside Su Ming, then yelled at Phantom Deus Elder. There was great eagerness and thirst in his eyes. The Phantom Deus Elder clenched his hands instinctively. He remained silent for a moment before he waved his arm and turned around to walk towards where Phantom Deus tribe's city was located beyond the snow plains. Give it to them. His words echoed in the air, and anger could be heard within his voice. Yet the moment he finished speaking but before he managed to take a few steps forward, a thought struck Tian Xiezi's head. He let out a few fake coughs and spoke to Phantom Deus Elder. Eldest disciple nephew. Look, I'm old now, and I don't remember things that well. I just remembered that I also lost quite a few things. The Phantom Deus Elder's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. Although his face was turned towards the crowd and could not be seen, they could still feel that he was seething with an anger that could burn the skies, as if he could no longer tolerate them. Yet the moment that anger appeared, suddenly, crunching sounds as if someone was stepping on snow came from beyond the snow plains, and they were soon followed by a person dressed in a purple robe that covered even his head, walking slowly forward until he stepped onto the snow plains. We'll give you everything you lost, but I want to talk to him, alone. That person lifted his right arm, which was as dried up as a bone. His fingers had incredibly long fingernails. The person he pointed at was Su Ming. His voice was hoarse, as if it traveled through the passages of time, and it drifted in the air. Phantom equal. Tian Xiezi's face instantly became stern, and the white hue on his robes started showing signs of change. Chapter 295, Lei Chen. Su Ming looked at the purple-robed person walking from beyond the snow plains with a look of concentration. That person gave him absolutely no feeling of familiarity, but the instant he lifted his right hand and pointed towards him, Su Ming felt his heart lurch. He could not explain it, but at that moment, that originally unfamiliar feeling suddenly became one of familiarity, as if Su Ming had seen this person somewhere before. The moment the purple-robed person appeared, Phantom Deus Elder, who was about ready to fly off into a rage, felt his anger draining away instantly. His expression calmed down and he turned around in midair. His gaze also fell on Su Ming. Tian Xiezi had a stern look on his face and his robes were showing signs of changing color. They no longer looked white but were changing into a gray hue. That gray shade was not the end of the change. Purple flecks of color gradually began showing on his robes. Sir Tian Xiezi, with all due respect, I harbor no ill will towards your disciple. I only have a few questions I need to ask him. The purple-robed person's face still could not be seen even as he spoke once again. Phantom Deus, Phantom Equal, it has been rumored that ever since the tribe was formed, there has been no second Phantom Equal since. In fact, it is also said in the rumors that when the great tribe of Freezing Sky subjugated Phantom Deus tribe, the Phantom Equal did not fight back either. I'd like to see just how strong you are, Phantom Equal. Tian Xiezi's gaze was chilling. At that moment, he no longer looked crazy but, instead, murderous. Sir Tian Xiezi, why don't you ask your disciple whether he is willing to talk to me? If he isn't willing, I won't force him, but if he is willing, I hope you won't stop us. The purple-robed man's voice was raspy, but his tone remained calm. Tian Xiezi looked at the purple-robed man and the grave look in his eyes grew stronger. That expression rarely appeared on him, and as that grave look in his eyes grew stronger, a faint will to fight appeared as well. He licked his lips but did not speak. Instead, he gradually lifted his right hand, and during that process, his robe started rapidly changing to a purple shade. By Su Ming's side, a grave look also appeared on second senior brother's face. Even the dark-skinned man, who was one of the 300 slaves belonging to the eldest senior brother, had the same reaction. You can ask, but you also have to answer my questions. Su Ming looked at the Phantom Equal and spoke suddenly. All right, the purple-robed person agreed calmly. Master, I'd like to talk to him. When Su Ming started speaking, Tian Xiezi's lifted hand came to a stop while he was in midair. He turned around to look at Su Ming, then after remaining silent for a moment, he lowered his right hand. Come with me. The purple-robed Phantom Deus tribe's Phantom Equal spoke hoarsely before he turned around and walked towards the borders of the snow plains that were previously behind him. Su Ming did not hesitate and moved forward. The purple-robed person walked in front, and Su Ming walked behind him. Soon, the both of them arrived at the border of the snow plains. Standing there, they could clearly see the city belonging to Phantom Deus tribe and the land that was gradually being invaded by green grass behind the city underneath the cliff. Silence fell among them. Neither of them spoke. There were several dozens of feet between the purple-robed person and Su Ming. After a long while, he spoke languidly. That is the southern lands. Su Ming looked at the faint hints of green on the land lying at the very end of his sight. He remained silent. What is your name? The purple-robed person turned around and, with his eyes still hidden underneath his robes, he looked at Su Ming. Su Ming, what is your name? Su Ming hesitated for a moment and decided not to hide anything. Instead, once he finished answering, he threw out a question of his own. The purple-robed person looked as if he had to mull over the question for a moment before he shook his head and answered hoarsely. Mine. I have already forgotten it. Phantom Equal is my name. I can sense a unique presence from you. You are not from the land of South Morning. The purple-robed person spoke in a whisper, but when his words fell into Su Ming's ears, it made his heart lurch. That was not a question. That was a statement that did not require any feedback from Su Ming. What is this? Su Ming avoided the topic and brought out a black stone from his bosom. The stone may seem hard, but in truth, when Su Ming first held it in his hand, it was very soft. That stone was the cocoon that had kept spitting out black bugs previously. This is a sacred item of Phantom Deus tribe. Through it, a member of Phantom Deus tribe can communicate with a unique world filled with countless phantoms. You're not from the land of the South Morning, and neither am I, the purple-robed person mumbled under his breath. Su Ming cast that person a glance but remained silent. I can feel a unique presence from you, and there's something familiar about you as well. It's as if we met before. Or perhaps I should say, you met the next Phantom Equal of Phantom Deus tribe. The purple-robed person turned around abruptly and gazed into Su Ming's eyes. The Phantom Equal in Phantom Deus tribe hasn't always been the same person. When one dies, the next will awaken. But I've searched through the entire land of South Morning and I still haven't found the next Phantom Equal. I should have died many times in the past, but every single time, I persevered and survived, and I've kept searching. Tell me, where did you find that person? You know who I am talking about. Right at the moment you brought out our sacred item, I knew that you already had an answer in your heart, and you have questions as well. Tell me about the person who was the source of those questions. Where is he? What is his name? He is the next phantom equal of Phantom Deus tribe. Su Ming felt shaken to the core. He looked at the purple-robed person and remained silent for a long moment before he shook his head. He's not in the land of South Morning. It doesn't matter. Tell me where he is and his name. I will repay you with this. The purple-robed person spoke in a raspy voice, then lifted his dried-up right hand. In his palm, a purple bug appeared. That bug was covered from head to toe in purple, and it was lying quietly on the purple-robed person's dried-up palm. A faint fragrance came from its body, and when that fragrance wafted into someone's nose, uncontrollable hunger would arise within them. This creature is called Purple Harmony. Any ferocious beast that eats this bug will revert to their ancestral form. If they succeed, then their combat strength will increase by leaps and bounds. If they fail, they will die. Take this with you. If you run into danger during Sky Mist Shaman Hunt, with this bug, you can let any shaman tribe go mad for you. Refine this bug into your heart. If you do so, you can kill this bug with just one single thought. Unless you're willing, others won't be able to take it away from you. You can form a deal with anyone you like and not be framed for crimes you didn't commit simply because you're carrying this. Su Ming's heart pounded against his chest. He had originally not believed the purple-robed person's words, but the moment the purple bug appeared, he could clearly sense that unknown rod insect-snake hybrid resting within Han Mountain Bell becoming restless as if it wanted to rush outside. It was as if the insect-snake hybrid's attraction towards the bug had reached a level Su Ming could not imagine. Su Ming stayed silent and shook his head. He could not tell whether the purple-robed person's words were true or false. After all, this was a serious matter. He would not tell so easily. I'll be taking my leave now. Su Ming turned around and quelled the insect-snake hybrid's almost hysterical restlessness within Han Mountain Bell. He started walking towards Tian Xiezi, who was standing far in the distance. I harbor no ill will. I just want to know where the next phantom equal is and what his name is. I cannot possibly walk out of the land of South Morning to search for him. I just want to know his name and where he is, then tell him of that strange phantom realm and the phantom art of my tribe. This will be good for his growth. The phantoms in this world will search for him and protect him. Please help me. The purple-robed person's voice was hoarse, but Su Ming could hear his sincerity. I know that I can't make you believe my words, but I truly harbor no ill will. I swear with the legacy of Phantom Deus tribe that if my words hold even a hint of untruth and if I want to hurt the person in your mind, then Phantom Deus tribe's legacy will end and my tribe will forever cease to exist in this world. The purple-robed old man took a few steps forward and his raspy voice was tainted with a hint of distress. Su Ming's footsteps faltered. He could hear the unwavering resolution in the person's words. In silence, Su Ming hesitated for a moment. This is my vow, and I swear using the god of Phantom Deus as my witness. The purple-robed person knelt on one knee, raised both his hands, then lowered his head towards Su Ming. When he knelt down, all those who saw it in the distance had a change in expression. Phantom Deus Elder even focused his gaze on them, but he did not get closer. Tian Xiezi frowned as he looked at the purple-robed person. He seemed to have understood what was going on. Su Ming turned his head back to look at the purple-robed person kneeling on the ground for a long while. This person's vow and his actions did not seem fake. He had even used his tribe to give his oath, and that act alone was enough to describe how severe the problem was. Alliance of the Western Region, Lei Chen, Su Ming whispered. Once he finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards Tian Xiezi. The moment he did so, the purple-robed person lifted his head, and his hidden eyes shone with gratitude. With a flick of his right wrist, that purple bug flew towards Su Ming. He caught it. Thank you. Don't worry, there were no lies in my words. After saying this, he bowed deeply towards Su Ming, then turned around and charged towards the depths of the snow plains. Su Ming left with his second senior brother, Hu Zi, Tian Xiezi, and that dark-skinned man. They left Northern Frontier Tribe, found by Su, and flew back to the 9th summit, bringing with them Zhou Zhe and all their rewards. Once they left, the face of Phantom Deus Elder turned incredibly dark. He turned around and charged down the snow plains. His wariness towards Tian Xiezi was not the only reason why he conceded so many times. There was one more reason. it was the Phantom Equal's request. He was going to ask the Phantom Equal the reason behind it. There was a tall tower within Phantom Deus City, which was located underneath the snow plains. That tower was entirely purple, and the purple-robed person was currently sitting at the top of the tower. There was a purple bowl before him, and within it was some purple blood. Alliance of the Western Region, Lei Chen, I, as the current Phantom Equal of Phantom Deus tribe, call unto you, my successor, awaken, Lei Chen, Lei Chen. As he spoke, he lifted his right hand swiftly and his right index fingernail shattered, revealing the torn flesh underneath. He pressed his index finger into the purple blood in the stone bowl before him. Lei Chen, let me see you. The purple-robed person let out a huge shout. As his voice started echoing in the air, the purple-robed person started trembling viciously. His robes were instantly torn apart, revealing an old but normal-looking face. His eyes bulged out, and with a look of disbelief, he saw. Chapter 296, Invitation. At that moment, the stone bowl shattered. The few drops of blood within also disappeared. The old man trembled and coughed out a huge mouthful of blood before he was thrown into the wall beside him by a powerful and invisible force. It was also at that moment that the door leading to the top of the tower was pushed open. Phantom Deus Elder walked in with a sullen expression on his face, but when he saw the mess in the place, he was stunned. How could this be? This is, the old man had a bewildered look on his face as he leaned against the wall. There was terror in his voice as he continued mumbling under his breath. Phantom Deus Elder reached him in a step, and once he helped the bewildered old man to his feet, he immediately asked, "What happened?" "I was looking for the next Phantom Equal. There was nothing wrong with the ritual, and I also saw him, but what I saw was..." The old man shuddered, then lifted his head swiftly to grab the shoulders of Phantom Deus Elder. His breathing quickened, and the bewildered look on his face was no longer present, it was instead replaced by lucidity. "I understand now. Remember this. Do not provoke that person called Su Ming. Absolutely do not provoke him. I saw something I shouldn't have. I saw..." The old man held Phantom Deus Elder in a tight grip and his breathing grew increasingly faster as he spoke with huge difficulty. "I can't tell you what I saw, but you must remember this. Don't provoke him, he is..." The old man's body started convulsing viciously. He pushed away the stunned Phantom Deus Elder and seized his own throat. Madness appeared in his eyes. A presence that made Phantom Deus Elder tremble gathered in the house. The strength of that presence made the elder's skin crawl, and he found himself frozen to the ground. His pupils shrank, because the things he saw far surpassed what he knew and exceeded his wildest imaginations. It even made him forget how to breathe. He saw a semi-transparent hand before the old Phantom Equal, and that hand held the Phantom Equal's neck in a tight grip. It lifted his body from the ground, and gradually, as the Phantom Equal struggled, he lost all his power. Like a normal old man, he lost all his power to fight back. Yet Mo Shan knew that he himself was not the strongest person within Phantom Deus tribe. The strongest was the Phantom Equal. Even if the Phantom Equal was already at the last days of his life, the power needed to kill such a person slowly like how one would a normal person was unimaginable to Mo Shan. He was shaken to the core as he watched everything unfurl before him dumbstruck. He gradually saw a semi-transparent person wearing the Emperor's robe appearing before the Phantom Equal. That person's appearance did not bring about the rise of wind or surging of clouds, neither did it cause the weather to change, but a terror that made Mo Shan feel as if he was suffocating. It was as if he had turned into an ant, and with just one glance from that semi-transparent person wearing the Emperor's robe and crown, his body would be torn to shreds. It only lasted for the span of a few breaths, but that time felt like an eternity to Mo Shan. He saw that semi-transparent person break the Phantom Equal's neck, and once he let go, he cast a glance at him. When he looked over, booming sounds rang in Mo Shan's head and his vision turned white. He did not know just how much time had passed, but when he regained consciousness, the house was silent. There was not a hint of sound within. The only proof that told him that all that had happened was real was the rigid corpse lying on the ground. Mo Shan trembled as he looked at the Phantom Equal's corpse, and the old man's last words echoed in his head. "I saw something I shouldn't have, remember this. Absolutely do not provoke the person called Su Ming, do not provoke him." Mo Shan shuddered and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. He knew that he would never be able to forget what had happened before the phantom equal died and when that crowned semi-transparent person looked at him. Just what did he see? Who is he? He's represented two different people. Mo Shan stayed silent. In his silence, he did not notice a faint gust of wind blowing outside the tall tower and within Phantom Deus City. That wind came from freezing sky. There were plenty of rumors in the world, and there were also a large amount of them that never faded away even through time. The rumor about the entire Ninth Summit moving out together to attack Northern Frontier Tribe gradually spread out in a short span of time. Some were shocked, some were furious, some did not believe it, and some just scoffed at it. Yet no matter what, another rumor was added to the pile of rumors that had emerged over the years regarding the Ninth Summit. Those living within the Ninth Summit continued with their lives. Eldest senior brother continued isolating himself. Second senior brother continued planting flowers, letting the sun shine on the side of his face with a gentle smile on his face during day, while he searched for darkness during nighttime like a ghost. As for Hu Zi, since he got himself a good pot of wine, he had been grinning happily every day like an idiot while drinking himself into oblivion. He had even skipped a few days on his favorite pastime, peeking at others. Su Ming continued copying the second style that granted him extreme speed, controlled the arrangement of his divine general armor, trained his body, and made the final preparations for Sky Mist Shaman Hunt. Ziche's injuries had become better. As for Zhou Zhe, Su Ming had told Ziche to deliver his head to the first summit, to Sima Xin's cave abode. In truth, there was something bothering Su Ming, but that question did not involve Sima Xin. It was meant for his second senior brother instead, but he did not ask him. Perhaps second senior brother had his own secrets, that was why he could not cure Ziche beforehand. Ever since Bai Su came back, she did not look for Su Ming for the past half a month, which was a rarity. It was as if she had run into something that threw her into doubt and she needed time to think about it carefully. Half a month later, when she arrived once more, Su Ming saw more of what reminded him of Bai Ling on her. The returned Bai Su had returned to her usual self, spoiled and willful. She would occasionally try to disturb Su Ming, but the price she had to pay every single time was her having to hang upside down in the air, which was something she was already used to. Time passed by this way slowly, until there were only less than 2 months until Sky Mist Shaman Hunt. During those final 2 months, even Su Ming, who never went down the mountain, could feel an oppressive air enveloping Freezing Sky Clan, just like the calm before a storm. One day, when Ziche returned, he brought an invitation card for Su Ming. That invitation belonged to the biggest trading square nearby and was given to him by the auction committee. The auction this time would be the biggest within Freezing Sky Clan's territory before the battle. The committee was not composed of people from the great tribe of Freezing Sky but from Western Sea Clan. This was a custom that would only happen during the Great War that only happened once a century. There would also be quite a number of people from Western Sea Clan who would also receive invitations from Freezing Sky Clan to join their own large-scale auction. Su Ming was originally not too interested in this sort of auction, right until the moment he saw something that would be auctioned among the list of items on the invitation card, something that made his heart pound heavily against his chest. It was an undamaged cauldron to create medicinal pills. Chapter 297, Phantom Fork Puppet. The auction would be held 5 days later. It was a large auction that would not just be attended by those within Freezing Sky Clan, but even the wealthy people from the great tribe of Freezing Sky would also send representatives to take part. The people from nearby tribes and even some tribes located further away also knew about large auctions that would only be held once a century like this one. These people would usually leave before the date of the auction itself, and they were most probably on the way to the auction at the moment. Most of the people who were going to the auction were going as buyers, but there were also quite a number who were coming from all over the place to sell their personal belongings to the auction committee. With the invitation card in hand, Su Ming's gaze swept past that cauldron. He quelled the excitement racing in his heart, closed his eyes, and pondered over it for a moment before handing the invitation card back to Ziche. We'll depart 3 days later. Ziche quickly agreed to it and took back the invitation card respectfully before placing it away in his bosom. His injuries were already healed, and he had also learned of what the Ninth Summit had done for him after he was injured from Huzi. He was deeply moved by their actions, especially since he was excommunicated from the Second Summit. The Ninth Summit's actions made Ziche feel warmth in his heart, and he no longer cared about his status of a servant. To him, the Ninth Summit was already a place he could settle in. Besides, the seals on his body had also been removed ever since he was cured. Ziche could be said to have been freed, but by his own free will, he still continued staying in the Ninth Summit and by Su Ming's side. He was already used to this sort of life, and he did not feel uncomfortable with it. He had a deep understanding of Su Ming's strength. The little bits of contact they had with each other made Ziche harbor a deep respect towards Su Ming. Once he put away the invitation card, Ziche hesitated for a moment. "Uncle Master, you already have 16 ice hoops on yourself. I believe that if you put too much external weight on yourself and it becomes difficult for your body to handle it, it won't be good for you." Su Ming cast Ziche a glance before a smile appeared on his face. "It's fine." Ziche nodded. He was not in a position to say it in a straightforward manner, but since he saw that Su Ming understood what he was trying to convey, he bowed and moved back. Su Ming was sitting on the platform outside his cave and had already been sitting for a long time without getting up. The sun had risen and set multiple times. It was not that he did not want to get up, but because the weight of those 16 ice hoops added together on his legs were like that of a mountain added to Su Ming's body. In the beginning, he had felt as if his legs and upper body were about to be torn apart, and he was only starting to get used to it during these past few days, but standing up was still a gargantuan task to him. Still sitting, Su Ming lifted his right hand. With a flick of his wrist, a black fork of only 3 inches appeared on his palm. That fork was like a 3-pronged trident. It was entirely black, and at the top of the fork, a faint, ghastly glow could be seen. If he looked at it for a prolonged period of time, he could hear faint screams of ghosts. Su Ming stared at the thing and mumbled under his breath, "Phantom Fork." This item was one of the things he had lost in Phantom Deus tribe that second senior brother had reminded him of. As of now, he had gotten it back. Originally, if Su Ming had gone on to examine it himself, he would have needed quite some time to do so. Yet with second senior brother's help, this fork had become connected with Su Ming as if they had fused together. He could use his thoughts alone to control it, and with Su Ming adding another layer on it with his divine sense in the form of a brand, his skills with the Phantom Fork became as good as of those from Phantom Deus tribe. Che. A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes as he uttered those 3 strange sounds. The moment those 3 syllables left his mouth, the Phantom Fork in his hand started letting off black smoke. In an instant, that black smoke grew incredibly thick and gathered on Su Ming's palm. That ball of smoke grew in size and eventually spread to an area of a few hundred feet. As it floated in midair, the black smoke tumbled about and gradually merged together to form a gigantic figure of a person. That person seemed to contain an immeasurable amount of power. His face was blurred out and could not be seen. His entire body was formed by that black smoke and he looked like a malicious spirit, but in truth, that thing was not a ghost. In fact, it did not even have life. It was just a puppet, a phantom puppet that was made with a spirit using a unique method created by Phantom Deus tribe. That puppet could transform into all sorts of things and there were no limits to it. Anything it imitated, it could do so down to every detail, and it could even imitate the particular object's presence. Right then, that gigantic puppet landed on the platform. It lifted its muscular arms and grabbed Su Ming, then tensing up the muscles in its arms, it lifted Su Ming's body, which he himself could not move, before placing him on its shoulder. Since the start, Su Ming did not say anything. That thing was under his control, and he only needed to focus his divine sense on it for him to be able to move it like he was moving his own body. The giant puppet carried Su Ming over its shoulder and walked forward with huge steps. Every single time it took a step, the ice on the platform would let out low rumbling sounds, a clear sign that Su Ming's weight at the moment was abnormal. The puppet moved forward and gradually brought Su Ming back into his cave abode. That puppet could change its form as much as it wanted, and as it moved forward, its body gradually shrank, causing it to be able to enter the house door even though it was carrying Su Ming. The puppet carried Su Ming until he was in the room specially made for He Feng. When he was there, Su Ming's eyes flashed. He Feng's fusion with the wings of the moon had reached its final stage. If he succeeded this time, then when He Feng reappeared before him, he would be of a great help when Su Ming ventured into the land of the shamans. At this moment, He Feng's entire body was surrounded by a layer of blood mist, preventing it from being seen clearly. That blood mist would occasionally tumble about, making it seem exceptionally bizarre. Su Ming looked at it for a moment before the puppet under him took a few steps back while still carrying him. They went into another room within the cave. The moment they arrived, a medicinal scent wafted into Su Ming's nose. This particular room was huge, and the floor in the room was not made of ice, but was instead covered in a layer of dirt. That dirt was brought back by Ziche from a faraway place under Su Ming's orders. Once they placed it inside, it allowed Su Ming to be able to plant most of the herbs he had lost in Phantom Deus tribe. Originally, these herbs could not survive in this place, but with second senior brother's help, who had used a mysterious method, he had managed to make those herbs grow on this patch of dirt. However, there was a condition to it. He had to bury a large amount of golden stone coins filled with spirit power under the soil. I'll need to make ample preparations for the trip to the land of the shamans, because this is definitely not going to be a short venture. A contemplative look appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He had gone to the land of the shamans before. While it had only lasted for a few days, the hardships he faced during those few days was something that would be very difficult for him to forget. Once he went into the land of the shamans and got himself in a dangerous situation like that one before, the preparations he made now would become the source for him to protect his life. As he continued thinking in silence, the puppet under him took one huge step forward. With rumbling sounds echoing in the air, he moved to another room. Within that room were 7 different beast bones, and an incredible might could be sensed from each of those bones. These bones came from ferocious beasts that were at the level of berserkers in the awakening realm when they were still alive. Right then, their bones were covered in herbs that Su Ming had planted on them quite some time ago. There were 7 bodies right beside those bones, and there were no signs of decay to be found on them. Even if they looked like dead people, if anyone took a closer look, they would be able to sense a faint life force coming from their bodies. These 7 people did not have berserker marks. There were numerous rather complex-looking totems carved on their faces. If Su Ming had not seen the shamans before, he would have thought that these 7 people belonged to some unique tribe in the land of berserkers. Yet when Su Ming brought these 7 bodies away from Phantom Deus tribe, he could tell with just one glance that they were shamans, though he had no idea how they were captured by Phantom Deus tribe. I just need 1 more month and then I'll be able to create spirit plunder again. If I can create 3 spirit plunders in a go, then I'll be able to open another door in that strange dimension and gain a new recipe for another medicinal pill. It's a pity that I still don't have enough materials to create the welcoming of deities. From what I understand of that dimension, opening the doors is akin to me offering sacrifices. The more of a type of pill I have to offer, the quality and usefulness for that type of pill will be lower, but if I have to offer less of something, the quality will be higher. The numbers of all the offerings required were different, but only the welcoming of deities required no offerings. The memory of him entering the mysterious dimension when he was in Dark Mountain and obtaining the method to create the welcoming of deities surfaced in Su Ming's head. The spider's 9th leg, the tail fin of the deviant snake, the small black figure, right now, I only have one of them. Su Ming frowned. The puppet under him walked out of the cave and returned to the platform. Once it placed him down, Su Ming returned to sitting cross-legged. With a glint in his eyes, he lifted his right hand, and a purple bug appeared on his palm. That bug's name was Purple Harmony, and it was the same thing Phantom Deus Phantom Equal had given him. I wonder what will happen once my snake swallows this Purple Harmony. Su Ming hesitated for a moment but did not try it. He remembered the Phantom Equal mentioning that if he failed, then the creature that swallowed Purple Harmony will die. Unless it was completely necessary, then Su Ming was not willing to try something as risky as this, and it also was that he did not have too much confidence in succeeding. 3 days passed by quickly as Su Ming continued observing He Feng's condition and preparing the materials to make spirit plunder. The auction that was about to be held had garnered a lot of attention from all the 9 summits in Freezing Sky Clan's Great Frozen Plains. Quite a lot of people had already left for the auction in teams, though some had also chosen to leave alone. As for the ninth summit, Zi was still living his life, happily getting drunk, and did not pay the slightest attention to the auction. Second senior brother continued planting his flowers and occasionally going to bother Ziyan during the day. Eldest senior brother was still in isolation. Su Ming only learned that the black man was one of eldest senior brother's slaves later. From that one clue, he formed a guess regarding his eldest senior brother's identity. Tian Xiezi was rarely seen. Even if Su Ming spotted him, he would be flying off in different directions in the morning after letting out a loud roar while wearing different colored robes. On the fourth morning, the puppet from the phantom fork turned into a gigantic black beast with Su Ming sitting on its back. Ziche followed beside him respectfully. They were just about to leave the ninth summit when Bai Su came. With Bai Su's appearance, their trip this time became a trip in a party of 3 instead of 2. The 3 of them sat on the puppet's body and turned into a black long arc that shot out of the ninth summit. They flew towards the place where the auction would be held. As they traveled forward, they met many other Freezing Sky clan disciples who were also going to the place. All of them turned to look at the black beast that was about 300 feet in size, but when they saw Ziche and Su Ming sitting on the puppet, they quickly moved out of the way. Chapter 298, Su Ming of the Ninth Summit. The puppet beast was entirely black and did not have any fur on its body. It looked like a giant on all fours that was running forward like the wild beasts on land. It was precisely because of its bizarre appearance that most of those who saw them on the way would turn their gazes aside and avoid them. During these days, the incident of the Ninth Summit fighting against Northern Frontier Tribe had become one of the many rumors circulating about the Ninth Summit. There were still plenty who did not believe it, but since this matter was related to the reputation of Northern Frontier Tribe and the tribe had still not come up to say anything about it, gradually, the believability of this rumor increased. It was especially so when some of those who knew people from Northern Frontier Tribe asked about it and obtained an answer that struck them dumb. It did not matter whether that incident was real, their attitude towards the Ninth Summit had changed because of it. That change was not of them wanting to get in touch with the Ninth Summit, but of them avoiding the Ninth Summit like the plague. When they saw Ziche, even if there were those who had never seen Su Ming would be able to tell at first glance that the young man with a scar on his face sitting beside Ziche was the Ninth Summit's Su Ming. The Su Ming who could fight against Sima Xin and who emerged unscathed even though he went to fight against Northern Frontier Tribe in a fit of rage. Su Ming sat calmly on the puppet beast's back with his eyes closed. He did not want to waste even a single moment of time, using all the time available to let his body get used to the weight of the 16 ice hoops. He had the confidence that when he could move and fly around like how he usually did, then once he took off those ice hoops, his speed would become even greater. He had been thinking lately that he should not put all those ice hoops on his legs, because if he did that, it would be difficult for him to control his body efficiently. He was thinking that once he started getting used to this weight, he would add ice hoops to the other parts of his body so that he could find some form of balance so that he could stay in control of his body movement. It's a pity that there's too little time left until Sky Mist Shaman Hunt. There's only less than 2 months left. While Su Ming was immersed in his thoughts with his eyes closed, Ziche sat beside him calmly. He was completely unperturbed by the people they met on the way, avoiding them while also paying attention to them. Neither was he bothered by the faint sounds of discussions occasionally falling into his ears. Yet he remained constantly alert and would occasionally scan his surroundings. If anything that would pose a threat to Su Ming appeared, he would rush out as soon as he discovered that danger and stand before Su Ming. There was a hint of excitement on Bai Su's face. It had been a long time since she was avoided by others as she traveled, while having them occasionally looking over at her to observe her as well. This sort of thing had only happened when she was traveling with Sima Xin. She did not expect that something like this would also happen when she was by Su Ming's side. The treatment may seem the same, but in truth, it was 2 different experiences for her. When she was with Sima Xin, the gazes directed towards him were filled with respect, admiration, and reverence. Even if they moved out of the way for them, they usually did so in respect. Sima Xin would also smile and nod towards those people in thanks. As for her, She would also need to smile beside Sima Shin and maintain the same poise as him by smiling and facing all those people. She had originally thought this to be rather good, but once she had something to compare it with. The situation right now was different. The gazes directed towards them were doubtful and held hints of them not wanting to have anything to do with Su Ming and the others. Most of the time, when they moved away, it was not out of respect, but due to the rumors that had been going around about the 9th summit lately. Bai Su did not need to force herself to maintain her smile. She could glare at those people who avoided them on the way as much as she wanted. If she was unhappy, she could even spit in their direction. It allowed her to feel relaxed, and compared to when she was with Sima Shin, she preferred this a whole lot more. Bai Su's gaze fell on Su Ming. As she watched him sitting with his eyes closed, a smile appeared on her face. However, that smile was mischievous, and no one could have any idea what she just cooked up in her head. The puppet beast was not slow. When dusk arrived on the 4th day, they could see a tribe formed from a large amount of temporarily set up tents on the vast plain of snow before them. The tribe was huge, and right in its middle was a stage built with a large amount of wood. There were around 1,000 people sitting around it. It was a grand sight. Just by looking at it, people could feel a mighty presence coming from that spot. As of then, there were a lot of berserkers within that tribe, traveling in and out of those tents. There were also quite a number of men with extraordinary power decked in armor patrolling the area with aloof expressions on their faces. Their clothes were distinctly different from those who went to the square to trade. There was a symbol of a sun rising from the sea horizon on their clothes. It was a unique symbol, and if anyone saw it, they would definitely be able to remember it. Because that sun rising from the sea was bloody red, as if there was a murderous aura coming right at those looking at it. There were also some strange-looking buildings around the tribe which looked like swords that were stuck in the ground. However, those swords were the size of ships that were about 1,000 feet tall. They stood tall in the area, and there were quite a large number of them around. If anyone bothered to count, they would find 18 such buildings in the square. Due to the puppet beast, Su Ming, Ziche, and Bai Su's arrival instantly caught the attention of the people in the area. 3 people immediately flew up from among the patrolling team and charged towards the incoming puppet beast. Stop! The 3 patrolling guards arrived quickly and stopped before the puppet beast. Their eyes as they looked at Su Ming and the others were cold, with hints of animosity shining through. Their gazes continuously landed on the puppet beast as if they were observing it. One of them turned his gaze towards Ziche right from the get-go, and soon, he brought out a beast skin scroll from his bosom, opened it up, and cast a few glances at it. Western Sea Clan Auction Committee welcomes Ziche of Freezing Sky Clan's 2nd Summit, and also 7th Summit's Miss Bai Su. The person checking the beast skin scroll lifted his head and a smile appeared on his face. He wrapped his fist in his palm towards Ziche and Bai Su, and as he spoke, his gaze swept past Su Ming, who was still sitting on the puppet beast with his eyes closed. A hint of uncertainty appeared on his face. Ziche narrowed his eyes. He was not surprised by Western Sea Clan knowing his name. The exchange of auction locations this time by the 2 big clans was not just to sell items, it was also to provide both tribes a chance to observe the other. Before they came here, they must have made detailed investigations. Recognizing Ziche and Bai Su was only to be expected. You flatter me. How may I address you? Ziche wrapped his fist in his palm to return the greeting and spoke in a low voice. He could tell with just one glance that the person holding the beast skin was the leader among the 3 people who came to them. This person was not weak. He should be around the middle stage of the awakening realm. The other 2 were at the initial stage of the awakening realm. I am not that famous within Western Sea Clan. You won't be too interested in knowing my name. The auction will be held tomorrow. Please come with me and I'll bring you to your lodgings to rest. The man holding the beast skin smiled. When he spoke as he shook his head to deny giving his name, a glint appeared in his eyes and he looked towards Su Ming. Brother, you look quite unfamiliar. If you don't have an invitation card, you aren't allowed to enter this place. As he spoke, the expressions of the 2 other people beside him turned colder and they looked towards Su Ming. Ziche frowned. He took one step, and just as he was about to speak, Su Ming opened his eyes. His gaze was calm as he looked towards the three people standing before the puppet beast. With a wave of his right arm, his invitation card immediately flew out in the form of a long arc towards the man with the beast skin. That invitation card flew out so quickly that it whistled in the air, flung out by Su Ming, sounding as if it had just broken through space itself. It made the man holding the beast skin change his expression and quickly retreat, but before he could take even a few more steps backwards, the invitation card had already arrived at the center of his brows, and it was not showing any signs of slowing down. By the looks of it, it was going to pierce through the center of the man's brows. The man's pupils shrank. As he retreated, a strong presence exploded from within him. Black mist also surrounded his body and turned into a set of armor that was similar to Su Ming's but was still different in terms of its details. Even so, that armor was still a true set of divine general armor. The moment it appeared, a mighty pressure spread out from him, causing the man's hair to move without wind, though shock could still be seen on his face. The invitation card suddenly came to a halt when it was 3 inches away from the center of the man's brows. It floated there unmoving, causing all the preparations made by the man holding the beast skin to turn completely useless. Even if he had not done anything and remained still, that invitation card would still not have caused any damage to him. With a dark expression, he looked at Su Ming, who was looking at him with a calm gaze from on top of the puppet beast. The moment their gazes met in midair, a booming sound resounded in the head of the man holding the beast skin. He staggered a few steps back. All of this happened within an instant, and it happened so quickly that the man's 2 companions did not manage to react to it. Only once it was over did anger appear on their faces, but they were also inwardly shocked by the invitation card's speed. Ziche was also shocked. He did not expect that this ordinary-looking person would turn out to be a divine general. Either he truly was not famous within Western Seal Clan, or he was hiding his identity on purpose and was secretly observing all the Freezing Sky Clan disciples as he hid himself in the patrol team. But a pity, because he ran into Su Ming. "That's the invitation card," Su Ming said calmly, and his words were uttered at a moderate pace. The face of the man holding the beast skin turned pale. He remained silent for a moment, but in the end, he did not touch the invitation card. Instead, he walked towards Su Ming and wrapped his fist in his palm to greet him. "I am Western Sea Clan Zhao Chen Tai. How may I address you?" Su Ming, of the 9th Summit. Su Ming did not choose to hide his identity. He simply answered unhurriedly. Zhao Chen Tai's expression changed. He looked at Su Ming closely and was just about to speak when out of the many tents, adorned with golden pictures, on the ground, a middle-aged man walked out. That man wore a purple robe, had fair skin, and his eyes were as bright as lightning. He took 1 step into the air, and before he even arrived, his laughter had already reached their ears. "So it's a guest from the 9th Summit. Chen Tai, stand down, I have to personally receive those from the 9th Summit." Chapter 299, Pardon me. Zhao Chen Tai took a few steps back and bowed respectfully towards the purple-robed man who was walking over. "Greetings, Clan Elder." His 2 companions standing by his side put on respectful expressions on their faces and bowed towards the purple-robed man as a greeting. A smile appeared on the purple-robed man's face as he walked in the air and came up to the puppet beast. He did not look at Ziche or Bai Su, but instead kept his gaze trained on Su Ming as he smiled at him and nodded his head. "Your senior Tian Xiezi's new disciple." Su Ming looked calm as his gaze fell on the purple-robed man. With just one glance, he could tell that this person was not in the awakening realm but was a powerful berserker in the bone sacrifice realm. Su Ming had always acted as such. If the other party was courteous towards him, then he would rarely act in an overbearing manner. Even if he could not move as of then, he still made the puppet beast under him shrink rapidly with one thought before it turned into a ball of black mist that surrounded the area under Su Ming's waist. That black mist rapidly merged together, and in the span of a few breaths, the puppet beast disappeared. Su Ming stood in the sky, and nothing out of ordinary could be seen, but in truth, he was still sitting down cross-legged. The legs that the others saw were formed by the phantom fork, which meant that the phantom fork puppet had turned into Su Ming's legs and was supporting him so that he could walk around like a normal person. "My master is indeed Tian Xiezi." Su Ming wrapped his fist in his palm and greeted the purple-robed man. A look of curiosity appeared in the purple-robed man's eyes once he saw the puppet beast shrinking under Su Ming. Looks like the rumors I heard lately about the 9th Summit and Northern Frontier Tribe are true. The Phantom Fork puppet is unique only to Phantom Deus Tribe. Outsiders can seldom get their hands on it. Su Ming smiled faintly and did not speak. Brother Su, since you're under Tian Xiezi, you must be of the same seniority as me. Brother Su, I am Chong Yi. This way, please, the purple-robed man said with a smile, then turned his body to the side in an invitation. Brother Chong, please lead the way. Su Ming smiled and wrapped his fist in his palm. The both of them moved at the same time. With just one step, the purple-robed man traveled approximately 400 feet away. He did not need to turn his head back to know that Su Ming was about 200 feet behind him. Chong Yi's expression was calm, but he had already formulated a guess, which he believed was accurate, within his heart regarding Su Ming's power. With his power, he could tell that Su Ming was not hiding his speed but was truly slower than him. He could also tell that the black mist formed by Phantom Deus Tribe's puppet surrounding Su Ming's legs had the purpose of increasing his speed. He sure is arrogant to turn the puppet into his legs while he continues sitting down. The purple-robed man smiled, not too bothered by it. Instead, he slowed down and waited for Su Ming for a while. Once Su Ming came up to his side, he started walking once again. Brother Su, your hobby is rather unique. I haven't even experienced such a luxurious act before. As they moved forward, the purple-robed man smiled towards Su Ming and his gaze swept past Su Ming's legs. It seems like I have made a fool of myself before you, Brother Chong. I can't stand up. I hope you will forgive me for this, Su Ming said with a smile, shaking his head. Ziche calmly followed beside Su Ming. Bai Su was originally the same, and she had been looking around the area curiously, but the moment she heard the purple-robed man's words, she frowned. Yet when she saw that Su Ming did not mind his words, she remained silent. Oh, you can't get up. Could it be that your cultivation method has caused your legs to be impaired? The purple-robed man put on a surprised face. You can say that. Su Ming nodded his head. A pity, such a pity. But Western Sea Clan's sacred medicine is among the list of items to be auctioned off this time. It might be able to help you. As he spoke, the purple-robed man descended from the sky to the snow in the tribe. Before him was a small tent, and it was clearly the temporary lodgings prepared for Su Ming and the others. This is your. He was still smiling as he spoke, but before he could finish his sentence, a sudden loud boom rang from beside him. That booming sound was so loud that it even caused the earth to tremble and the snow on the ground to fly at least 10 feet into the air. It was as if there was a force that just impacted the ground, and that force was sweeping outwards with this area acting as its center. The tents in the area were torn off the ground. Almost all the people in the tribe swiftly turned their gazes toward them. The purple-robed man's expression drastically changed and disbelief shone in his eyes. As he looked at Su Ming, he was momentarily stunned. He saw the loud rumbling sound start the instant the legs formed by Su Ming's puppet landed on the ground. It was as if a tall mountain fell from the sky and crashed on the ground, causing the earth to tremble and huge gusts of wind to spread out. The instant the legs landed on the ground, he also saw the legs being unable to withstand that strong force and turning into a thick layer of black mist. As the mist spread outwards, Su Ming, who had been sitting within, was also exposed, and it caused him to fall down with another bang on the ground. The purple-robed man took a deep breath. He had clearly felt the earth's tremors and sensed that the source of it all was Su Ming. Just what did this person bring with him? How could it be so heavy? The pupils of the purple-robed man shrank. He just remembered Su Ming's speed just now and his previous assumptions. Yet by the looks of it now, his assumptions were like a joke. This person was only slightly behind him when he was carrying a weight akin to a mountain on him. If he took that weight away, then his speed. When the purple-robed man reached that particular train of thought, he could not help but be stunned. Su Ming. He's Su Ming. The people around them had gathered their gazes on them due to the two booming sounds and the earth's tremors just now. When they saw Su Ming sitting on the ground, someone instantly recognized him. That's Su Ming, the fourth disciple of the 9th Summit. That's right, I saw him fighting against Sima Shin before. Look, There's Ziche standing beside him as well. He actually came here. Interesting. I heard that eldest senior sister Tian Lan Meng, senior brother Sima Xin, and a lot of other powerful berserkers who have a spot on Great Frozen Plains ranking board have also come. The auction this time is definitely going to be interesting. It's the auction hosted by Western Sea Clan that is only held once a century, of course it'll attract these sorts of people. I heard that this is only a normal auction too. Once this auction is over, they will be hosting another, smaller auction. But to attend that, the person must at least have attained great completion for the bone sacrifice realm, and most of them will be those old men in the berserker soul realm. Within the temporary tribe built by Western Sea Clan for the auction was another tent located not too far away from Su Ming. Inside that tent was a handsome man sitting cross-legged. Right then, that man opened his eyes, and he looked as if he could see through the tent and look at the world outside. Su Ming, the man said calmly, and a murderous glint appeared briefly in his eyes. That man was Sima Xin. There were quite a number of temporarily set up tents surrounding Sima Xin's own. These tents were all filled with Freezing Sky Clan disciples, and they all treated him as their leader. They would only listen to his orders. In another direction of the tribe was a rather remote area with only 8 tents. Right in the center of that area was a white tent, and within that tent was a woman. There was a white wooden chip placed before her. She brushed her index finger across that piece of wood with a frown on her face. Behind her was a pretty girl who was combing the woman's dark locks. Occasionally, she would peek over the woman's shoulders to look at the wooden chip. Eldest senior sister, you've been drawing for a long time. What exactly are you drawing? The woman sitting in the tent was incredibly beautiful. When she heard the question, she lifted her head and was just about to speak, but she suddenly frowned, then turned her head towards the direction where Su Ming was at the moment in the tribe. He's also here. That woman was, naturally, Tian Lan Meng. At the same time, the people sitting within the 18-sword ship-like object sticking out of the ground opened their eyes and looked towards the spot where Su Ming was. Most of the people sitting inside the 18-sword ship hybrids were old men. When they looked over to that spot, shock appeared on their faces. The two bangs had attracted the entire tribe's attention. Su Ming frowned, then using his divine sense, he had the black mist that was formed from the puppet gather once again to cover the area below his waist. Then, slowly, he had those legs stand up, making it seem as if he was the one standing up from a seated position. Pardon me, there is something wrong with my body, so it's a little hard for me to control myself right now. I suppose this is my lodging. Su Ming put on an apologetic look to the purple-robed man staring at him with a dumbfounded expression not too far away. The purple-robed man sucked in a deep breath, and his gaze, as he looked towards Su Ming, immediately became different. He wrapped his fist in his palm towards him. Brother Su, you are mistaken. This is definitely not a place for someone like you to stay. Not only is this place shabby, it's also noisy. Brother Su, this way. There is an empty spot to the north. It's much quieter there, and it's definitely a suitable spot for you to train. After all, this auction will last for several days. Brother Su, this way, please. A warm look of welcome appeared on the purple-robed man's face. That was an attitude used only when giving respect to the strong and when treating someone else as an equal. It might seem similar, but anyone with a discerning eye could see the small differences in his actions. Then, I will have to trouble you, Brother Chong. Su Ming remained silent for a moment before he smiled and nodded. Under the purple-robed man's lead, they weaved their way through the tribe. On the way, all the Freezing Sky Clan members, who saw them, would mostly smile and nod towards him, though they still looked quite uncertain about him. This lasted until they reached the northern section of the tribe. The place was indeed much quieter. There were not many tents around the place, and the few that were around were spaced out far in between. This place will be suitable for you as a training place, Brother Su. If you have anything you need, you can tell me now. If you don't have any now but think of something later, you can search for a patrolling Western Sea Clan disciple. We'll try our best to fulfill your request up to your satisfaction. The purple-robed man smiled and wrapped his fist around his palm to Su Ming. Thank you, Brother Chong. I'm fine with everything as of now, Su Ming said with a smile. If that is the case, Then I will take my leave for now. I'll have someone send you the pictures of the items that will be auctioned this time. You can take a look at them beforehand. Of course, the items listed here are just a part of the items we will auction off later. There are some that were only recently added to the list by other people, and we haven't found the time to update the list. The purple-robed man smiled and nodded towards Su Ming before he wrapped his fist in his palm to bid farewell. As of then, Ziche had already brought out some skin tents from his storage bag and set them up in an empty spot. There were 2 tents, and they were for Su Ming and Bai Su. He had not felt the need to prepare one for himself. The entrance to Su Ming's tent would be the spot where he would meditate and stand guard. Chapter 300. Su 1. To the north of the tribe was a rather spacious snow plain. In that snow plain was a tent, and within that tent, Su Ming sat on a beast skin spread on top of the snow. The beast skin cut off the cold from the snow, causing the person sitting on it to not feel too cold. There was a brazier that was roasted to a red shade in the tent. Due to the heat coming from the brazier, the snow on the ground was rapidly melting away. Once the snow inside the tent completely melted, the tent would be filled with warmth. Besides the crackling sounds from the fire burning within the brazier, the entire area was silent. As Su Ming remained seated, a glint appeared in his eyes and the faint traces of a cold smirk could be seen on his lips. He had made the puppet shatter on purpose so that his body, which weighed like a mountain at the moment, would fall on the ground and let out a huge bang. With this method, he could instill fear among the people of Western Sea Clan, which would make them not dare treat him poorly, which was the reason that led to the change of lodging. It was not because Su Ming was being petty and fussing about this matter right down to the smallest detail. Instead, it was because he was no longer just representing himself this time. Most of the time, when he introduced himself, the 9th Summit would be mentioned before his name. He was one of the 9th Summit. His reputation was the 9th Summit's reputation. If he truly stayed in the densely packed and noisy tribe, people would look down on the 9th Summit. This was something Su Ming refused to accept, especially when there was simply not much need for him to keep too much of a low profile within Freezing Sky Clan territory. Besides, there was another reason as to why Su Ming acted this way. He wanted to stun those who harbored animosity towards him, and especially Sima Xin and Tian Lan Meng. During the few days he had been in a contemplative silence after he received the invitation, he came to understand what exactly was going on with this auction. Due to his lack of experience, he still did not possess a monstrous amount of cunning that allowed him to understand things quickly, but if he could not understand what was going on within 2 hours, he could use 4 hours to do so. If 4 hours were not enough, then he would use a day. Hence, after several days went by, Su Ming had come to understand clearly what was going on. Sima Xin might not have played a big part in Su Ming receiving the invitation card, because Su Ming did not think that Sima Xin had the ability to ask Western Sea Clan to help him. Besides, the invitation card asked for the people of the 9th Summit to participate in this auction. After some thinking, Su Ming did not think that there were any traps within the invitation itself. However, if the 9th Summit could receive the invitation, then with Sima Xin's fame, he would definitely attend the auction as well. Tian Lan Meng and the others would undoubtedly come too. That was why Su Ming decided to give up on keeping a low profile. Instead, the moment he stepped into the temporary tribe built by the auction committee, in his own way, he chose to arrogantly announce his arrival as Su Ming of the 9th Summit to all the people there. Surprising Sima Xin was to make sure he did not make any reckless moves, because Su Ming did not want to fight in this place. Compared to Sima Xin, he was much more concerned about Sky Mist Shaman Hunt. However, on the off chance that Sima Xin would ignore his expression of goodwill, Su Ming had also provided him with a response right after his act of stomping on the ground. Pardon me. As for Tian Lan Meng, Su Ming also wanted to surprise her, but it was for a completely different purpose compared to Sima Xin. Tian Lan Meng had a request to ask of him, hence the stronger Su Ming presented himself before her, the more complicated their relationship would be. By doing so, he could turn that woman into his temporary ally, which would make things easier for Su Ming during this auction. It did not matter whether he ran into danger or was buying things, that woman would become a great help to him. After all, I don't have a lot of stone coins on me. Su Ming stroked his chin and a smile appeared on his face. This was something he did not notice doing. Living in the ninth summit had caused his personality to change slightly without his knowledge. For example, this scheme, before he came to Freezing Sky Clan, he would have never thought of it. For another example, one has to remember the loss of his things in Phantom Deus tribe. This was also something Su Ming would have never managed to come up with in the past. All of this happened because he was slowly changed by second senior brother, Hu Zi, and by Tian Xiezi when he came to the ninth summit. As Su Ming continued mulling over what was to come, he suddenly lifted his head. The heat from the brazier in the tent had melted all the snow on the ground. The ground beneath the beast's skin was already toasted until it was pleasantly warm, making seem like it belonged to another world compared to the snow-covered ground outside the tent. Not long after Su Ming lifted his head, someone tapped on the tent, which was followed soon by Ziche's voice traveling into the tent. Uncle Master, Western Sea Clan has sent the illustrated list of auctioned items. Su Ming waved his right hand, and immediately, the tent flaps were lifted. A cold gust of wind charged into the tent. It was already dark outside, but due to the contrast of the white shade of the snow on the ground, the world outside did not seem too dark, and he could still see snow floating down the ground due to the wind. It was snowing outside. Ziche stood at the entrance respectfully. His hair was covered by snow and he was wearing a long robe. In his hands he held the illustrated list for the auctioned items, which was really a book made of several thick beast skins bound together. Once the tent flaps were lifted, Ziche walked in and placed the illustrated list respectfully before Su Ming. Then he took a few steps backwards. Once he saw that Su Ming did not have any further orders, he turned around and was about to leave. "It's cold outside. I should have asked you to come in and keep warm inside the tent, but your cultivation method is related to the cold. This sort of weather is suitable for your training. I've been observing your power for a long time, and I think there's something lacking in it. I suggest you try listening to the sound of snow." Su Ming did not lift his head up. He simply spoke calmly as he flipped through the pages of the illustrated list made of beast skins. Ziche's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. He stood there for a moment as if he had just reached an understanding, then bowed deeply towards Su Ming before he left the tent. A bright light appeared in Su Ming's eyes after he flipped through a few pages on the illustrated list. On that particular page was a cauldron, and some wisps of smoke were drawn above the cauldron. "The nameless barren cauldron," Su Ming mumbled. Those 4 words were written right on that particular page. There were a few words written by the cauldron's name as a simple description of its origins. The detailed descriptions of its functions were not written down, however. As the barren cauldron is a tribal item from the Great Yu dynasty, that is why all items shaped in the form of a cauldron will contain incredible power, though they are also very rare. This cauldron was taken from a tribe in the land of shamans and was regarded as a sacred item in that tribe. It was later brought to the Berserker tribe and offered to Western Sea Clan. Su Ming stared at the cauldron for a moment before he flipped through the remaining pages in the list. His main target was the cauldron. That was why he did not pay too much attention to the other items, especially since this list did not contain all the items that were going to be auctioned off. There were still some that were not recorded. When Su Ming reached the last page and his eyes fell on it, a look of concentration suddenly appeared in his eyes and he brought that list up to look at that particular page closely. The more he studied it, the more brightly his eyes shone. "This thing is..." A glint appeared in Su Ming's eyes. He was almost certain that this thing was exactly what he thought it to be. That thing was a mountain rock that was taller than a person. It was colorless and transparent. Yet within the rock was a human-shaped thing that was completely black and looked as if it was sitting inside. That humanoid-shaped thing looked like a real person. It had all 4 limbs, 5 fingers on each hand, a head, and everything else that was characteristic of a human. Su Ming stared at the humanoid-shaped thing's hands which were placed above its knees. The illustration was a little crude and he could not see too clearly. The details were not that accurately depicted either. "It should be that thing," Su Ming mumbled. He already had the 9th leg of the 9-legged spider for the welcoming of deities but was missing 2 more materials. If this thing was truly one of them, then he would only need 1 more item before he could create the welcoming of deities, the scale from a python's tail. However, Su Ming remembered that the particular scale was different from a normal python tail's scale. There were 3 corners on that scale. Yet no matter what, if that small person in that mountain rock was what Su Ming needed, then it would be very important for him to get it, especially when he remembered that the welcoming of deities was the only medicinal pill out of all the ones he had obtained currently that did not need any offerings on the gates of the strange dimension. This could only mean that it would be incredibly difficult to make this pill. Yet similarly, this also meant that the might of this medicinal pill would reach an unimaginable level, perhaps even surpassing that of spirit plunders. Su Ming stared at the beast skin page and slowly closed the book. This auction is very interesting. Su Ming rubbed the center of his brows and entered into deep thought. Before long, while Su Ming was still immersed in his thoughts, someone suddenly lifted the tent flaps, causing cold air to rush into the tent. Su Ming did not even need to lift up his head to know who it was. There was only person who could come in without Ziche blocking their way. Su Ming, I can't sleep. Bai Su wore a white beast skin blouse with her hair falling down her shoulders. She yawned and moved to Su Ming's side. Su Ming ignored her and continued staying with his eyes half closed as he thought about the things regarding the auction. Su Ming, you deaf and mute jerk. You're always like this. I can't sleep. You have to talk to me, or else I won't let you have your peace. Bai Su glared at him and moved to stand before him. You're the one who insisted on coming. Su Ming cast a glance at Bai Su calmly. A thought struck Bai Su's head and she said, I don't care. I can't sleep, and I want to go out and look at the snow. Su Ming looked at Bai Su and asked after a moment of being silent. You want to look at the snow? That's right, I want to look at the snow. Come with me. Bai Su twirled a few locks of her hair with a finger and smiled at Su Ming. Sky Mist Shaman Hunt is around the corner, it's about time we end this, Su Ming mumbled. Bai Su could not hear his voice, and he was the only one who knew clearly that he needed to make a decision. All right, Su Ming stood up and walked towards the entrance of the tent. Once he lifted the flap, he saw the silver land under the night sky. The silver light reflecting off the snow not only made him be unable to see the end of the land, it also gave him a sensation of familiarity. Let's go, Su Ming said softly. He waved his hand, signaling Ziche, who was about to get up, to not follow him, then walked out with the wind and snow falling on him. Bai Su followed quickly behind him with a smug expression on her face. During these past few months, she had entered that strange dream multiple times. Yet those dreams were blurred out and most of them could not be seen clearly. She really wanted to know the story of the girl who looked exactly the same as her and who Su Ming had met in the past. At that moment, she did not know that her unconscious act had caused the Berserker Seed's battle between Su Ming and Sima Xin reach a new height. Sima Xin wanted to leave Bai Su's image in Su Ming's heart and use that familiarity of hers to make a thought blossom in Su Ming's heart. Then he could use his relationship with Bai Su and turn that thought into his Berserker Seed. Su Ming wanted to do the exact opposite. He wanted to turn Bai Su completely into Bai Ling. He would also pour his entire heart and soul into doing so, and the moment he walked out of this, he would leave no traces of himself behind, just like the wind as it blew past a place.